Part 308. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3084. Maybe it will directly transcend the territory master? Is it also possible to squeeze into the same level as existences such as Taishang? No one knows what will happen. Because of this matter, the character has not yet been written. But deep down in Jia Yan's heart, he has quietly buried the seed. Perhaps as more and more people are strengthened with the array gene he concocted himself, this seed will one day grow into a towering ancient tree. He is completely inclined to take dangerous measures himself and embark on this narrow escape path of genetic enhancement. Your Excellency Chu Xing, as the saying goes, we must say goodbye after a long journey. Please come back. Then I won't send you off to Mr. Jia Yan. The three powerful men were soaring in the stars, and Jia Yan told Chu Xing not to send them any more, causing Chu Xing to look around suspiciously. This must be the inner hinterland of his Chuxing force. Why did the other party tell him not to give it away before he even left his home? This is a bit much. The conditions they agreed upon were not ripe now, and it would take some time before they could continue to fulfill their promises, so Jia Yan said goodbye to Chuxing. Who makes him weaker than Jia Yan? Even if he has any hesitation, he doesn't dare to say it in front of his face. As early as half a year, Jia Yan had turned his Chuxing power upside down, so he thought about it and let it go. Your Excellency, Jia Yan is indeed not an ordinary person. Chu Xing and I have known each other for more than 1,000 years, and I have never seen him behave so badly. Your Majesty, Jiqiao is joking. I'm just trying to convince people with reason. A good one who convinces people with reason. The remaining being was secretly wary of Jia Yan's unreasonable behavior. This young strong man may not be as simple as being young and frivolous. Rather than being reasonable or saying something that has been agreed upon by strong men, it is impossible for him to talk about it. It's not that Jia Yan is any different, it's just that his promotion to the lower level of territory lord was too short and he was too young. Haha, Your Excellency, Jia Yan made it hard for him to tell you. On the contrary, I admire you but also feel a little worried about this. I wonder if it is right to discuss this matter with Your Excellency. The two lower-level territory lords were walking slowly in the starry sky, not very fast, but it was impossible for ordinary territory lords to catch up. Why did Sir Jiqiao say this? If you hadn't been interested in cooperating with me, you wouldn't have sent the message to me when we just had the conversation. Jia Yan was so free that he responded directly to everything the other party said. Good. The reason for deliberately setting aside Chu Xing was simple. The junior domain lord named Jiqiao also invited Jia Yan to discuss important matters. Instead of being a polite scum, Jia Yan prefers to be a magnanimous villain, speaking sharply and arrogantly, making the two peers speechless. Of course this is backed by strength. The lower level of clever territory lord looked unnatural. Which of the powerful people of the same level that I have come into contact with in the past has not played dirty tricks behind the scenes and called them brothers in person? As a powerful person in the lower realm of the territory lord, everyone cares about face and pomp. Your Excellency Jia Yan, you are indeed quick to talk. What I invite you to do this time is very simple, since you are a talented person in the subspace and have practiced to such an extent. You must also know about the other world in the subspace. Another world. For a moment, Jia Yan's heart surged, and he directly thought of something. Seeing his look, Jiqiao knew what Jia Yan knew, so he stopped pretending and said calmly, looking at your reaction, I must be at least not completely unaware of things in the other world. It is rumored that in this world, there are domain lords like me. The opportunity to advance to the next level. I wonder if Your Excellency Jia Yan knows the world there and whether he has a way to enter the other world. Jia Yan's heart was surging and his eyes were uncertain. After thinking for a moment, he shook his head and said, although I have learned about this so-called world from other people's words, there is no way to enter it. At the same time, Jia Yan's heart was already filled with thoughts, and he thought of many things from this conversation. For example, the inner world mentioned by Jijiao Domain Lord's second step is probably the huge world that Jia Yan once entered. A giant, 1,000 kilometers high. A casually strong person, now that I think about it, it would be a bit difficult for him to solve it. Of course, the huge world he entered by mistake at that time was viewed from the perspective of a weak mosquito. The cultivation systems of the two sides were different. It is possible that the existence that seemed invincible at the time could be easily killed now when he returns to his old place. It's hard to measure without visiting in person. Only. Is this ingenious territory lord's post level, talking about the other world, actually an opportunity for them to advance to the territory lord's post level? Jia Yan assessed the situation in his heart, and finally decided not to reveal that he might have a way to enter the other world, but to use his tactics and listen to what the other party had to say. Your Excellency Jia Yan, at such an age, has already heard about the other world. It can be said that he is very lucky. It took me many years before I had the opportunity to make some insinuations and find out about the other world. However, most masters of the same level, even if they know after understanding the things in the other world and the opportunities in the other world, we can only look forward to it and sigh. After all, the other world is located very deep in the subspace. In other words, the subspace is just one of the passages connecting the other world. Countless people have found countless people. Years ago, I couldn't find a way to enter the 8 classics. Knowing that it exists there, I can only wait for the opportunity, and there is nothing I can do. When Ji Qiao talked about the other world, he looked intoxicated, as if the world there was a paradise to him. Jia Yan sneered inwardly. As someone who has experienced it himself, he knows very well that the giant world is by no means a place of chance. It is actually a real world inside. As a giant mosquito several hundred meters tall, he was in it. It's just a little mosquito, encountering a huge giant thousands of kilometers away is like looking at a god. Even if there is any opportunity there, it will not be easy to get, and you may have to die inside. But he has no obligation to remind the other party. This person must have something to express when he talks about the other world. Jia Yan doesn't have to reveal his true identity, he just needs to listen carefully. Oh, the other world is so difficult to enter. I wonder what Sir Jiqiao means when you mention it to me. Ji Qiao looked around and said mysteriously, I dare not deceive you, but I have a way to enter the other world here. Do you have a way to enter the other world? Jia Yan was suddenly startled. He said that he was only somewhat certain that he could enter the world of giants, and this junior domain lord who did not have the talent for subspace also said that he had a method, which surprised Jia Yan. It seems that the heroes of the world cannot be underestimated. Yes, I worked hard on this method. I went through countless experiments and worked with several territory lord level subordinates before I finally came to the conclusion. However, in the end, this method still lacks a key factor. What factors? The master of Jijiao domain looked at Jia Yan without changing his expression, causing Jia Yan to react suddenly. Without waiting for Jia Yan to ask a question, the other party said bluntly, that is the strong person with the talent of the subspace. Mr. Jia Yan, you also know that one of the ways to enter the other world is through the subspace. However, this time the strong person who needs space, the level is extremely high. Although I have thought of several plans, the person who can stably live in the subspace must be a senior domain master or above with subspace talent. Even if you want to achieve the best effect, you may have to be a lower level domain master. And you, he is a junior domain lord with extremely outstanding dimensional talent. When Jia Yan heard this, he showed a true expression. He didn't feel any excitement or eagerness to give it a try, but said calmly, oh. In that case, Mr. Jiqiao wants to cooperate with me? I wonder what price you can offer. Next came the time for mediation. Both sides heard that the other party wanted to cooperate. However, in the face of interests, how could two strong men who were unfamiliar with each other and were in a state of fighting before reach an agreement easily? Your Excellency Jia Yan, it is better not to mention the price as much as possible. Now that I have told you everything, entering the other world and getting a chance is the greatest opportunity and reward. Don't be too open-mouthed. Jia Yan laughed. Ji Jiao, tell the truth. If you hadn't told me about the cooperation first, I would have given you a slap in the face before we parted. Our relationship is one of enemies or friends. If we talk about cooperation, you can't give me any benefits, and I can't give you any benefits. How can I help you? Friendship. Fighting friendship? Needless to say, it is simply ridiculous. Ji Jiao was offended by Jia Yan's words, and his expression was ugly. When Jia Yan said directly, he wanted to give him a hard blow, so he silently distanced himself from Jia Yan. Judging from his observations of Jia Yan, it is really possible for this guy to do this. Very damaged. Ji Jiao laughed dryly. It seems that Your Excellency Jia Yan is very defensive against me, but I am sincere in my intention to cooperate. So, since you insist, I can give you 20% of Ji Jiao's star field afterwards. I leave it to you, Yin Yang Dao, to take care of it. You must know that my Jiji force is about the same strength as the Chu Xing force, and the territory it occupies is no worse than that of Chu Xing force. 20% is enough for Yin Yang Dao to gain a foothold. Afterwards, Jia Yan almost jumped up and cursed back. What's the difference between this and a man saying he'll pay you later? You want to have sex for free? The world there is so dangerous. If you go in, you might not be able to get out. I'm sure I can get out. If you die in there, who am I to ask for you? The territory? Go and attack it yourself? What's the difference between that and the one I took? You kid can't get out? Is there anyone who talks like you? Although Ji Jiao doesn't quite understand what Jia Yan means by men afterwards, he still understands the general meaning. Let's see, my Jiji force is a force that uses clever mechanisms to carry forward. In the central star field of the Milky Way, the overall strength is only stronger than the prime star force. The name of Jiji is even more popular among countless forces. If you want reward first, I can only give you some of the materials of the ingenious forces, and even ingenious devices. Are you willing? A clever mechanism. Jia Yan was non-committal. He knows this stuff. There have always been strong men who use foreign objects in the Milky Way, and many of them, like the previous vessel domain masters, completely borrowed foreign objects to fight, and their strength cannot be underestimated. But since his debut, Jia Yan has rarely borrowed foreign objects. The method of cultivating the yin and yang Tao's magic weapons was also invented by him on a whim. He is good at physical boxing and physical fighting styles, and is not very interested in borrowing external force. Sorry, it seems that what my clever friend gave me is not attractive enough to me. It seems that our cooperation cannot be carried out. I will not reveal what you said about the other world to the outside world. I will say goodbye. Jia Yan used retreat to advance, jumped straight into the space, and wanted to enter it and escape. Etc. As expected, Jiqiao shouted. How could he, being so scheming, not know that Jia Yan was playing hard to get, but just like what he said, the method he developed without a strong subspace talent is like a powerful medicine without the main ingredient, it cannot be used at all. Even if Jia Yan reveals it, he has nothing to fear. At worst, speaking to the outside world, the most important thing about this method is to have the top powerhouse in the subspace. Except for Jia Yan, there seems to be no one in the entire galaxy who meets the conditions. It will still be Jia Yan who will be annoyed then. Let's do this. I can give you a lot of cultivation resources and an object of enlightenment. I will give it to you before executing this matter. This is my limit. Do you agree? When he heard that there was an object of enlightenment, Jia Yan suddenly became energetic. Nowadays, how can he still not understand how important the object of enlightenment is in opening the way for junior territory lords like them? It is not an exaggeration to say that it is regarded as a life and death relationship. Unexpectedly, Jiqiao was willing to give one. I didn't expect Jiqiao Laoda to be so generous, so thank you for the object of enlightenment. I will take over this matter, haha. I wonder when the object of enlightenment will be in my hands. Jia Yan's expression changed so fast that he was not expecting it. Even the lower-level lord of Jijiao domain had no time to change his expression. He said in a dumbfounded voice, that thing of enlightenment is within my Jiji power. If your excellency Jia Yan agrees, I can make it right now. Go and get it. Don't worry, clever old man. I have placed a disciple in the Chuxing force to practice. There is still about half a year until the appointed date of the training. Why don't we wait until her training is over and then we go to your place? How about the clever force? In fact, Jia Yan would rather say that he will wait until he comes back from the earth, but the nights are long and there are many dreams. If the object of enlightenment that comes to his mouth is gone, he will have to cry and faint in the toilet in the middle of the night. It's as miserable as the boy who lost the female vote on Earth China Day 520. Do you think you should cry fainting? Are you arranging for your disciples to gain experience in the Chuxing force? Ji Jiao was dumbfounded after hearing this. www.zhhaoshuyuan.com. Isn't this Jia Yan a master of time management? He comes to look for trouble in other people's forces, and also leads his disciples to the enemy's lair for training. Aren't you afraid that your disciples will be kicked when you are fighting against Chu Xing outside? Is this harming the disciple, or is the disciple not treated favorably by Jia Yan at all? I have to say, I have a really big heart. It's only half a year. It's over in one retreat. Of course it's no problem. The ingenious group treated half a year as if it were a minute, which made Jia Yan deeply aware of the difference in the two sides' basic understanding of time. Okay, then I will go check on the disciple's condition and contact you then. The two territory lords later parted ways. If Chu Xing knew that these two bastards had not left, but were causing trouble in the hinterland of Chu Xing's influence, he would probably have fainted in the toilet from crying. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3085. The terrain of Chuxing's power is in the shape of two belts. The stars distributed in this belt are generally younger. Chuxing named them East Road and West Road. As for whether there is any profound charm, that is unknown. In the West Road district, there is a large area of lightning and thunder. The small figure, riding an object like a long snake, flew up to the sky, like the banished immortal born, free and easy. Miss Master, you said that you are from outside the galaxy Central Star region. I don't know if there are any top powerful forces outside the galaxy Central Star region, but if they are not big forces, how can they cultivate peerless geniuses like Miss? Miss is very powerful, but the power that Miss comes here is also very powerful. You don't know that you are stupid. The extremely small figure, sitting on the snake's head, was radiant and full of energy. He spoke in childish words. If you listen carefully, he rarely reveals his own roots. Adisha has become obsessed with the way of traveling by other powerful creatures. No, halfway, she flew out of the subspace and grabbed a star to travel for her. Anyway, the speed is not slow and it does not consume her own strength. This is a great deal. And the giant snake creature couldn't help but reveal a hint of sinisterness in its eyes. This little thing, with his cunning and insidious tricks, couldn't ask anything. He now wanted to know what the background was behind the little girl. Without a big background, he couldn't defeat her personally. He could use special sound transmission skills to shake things up anytime and anywhere. People. If you can't defeat 1, 2, 3, or even 4 or 5 star levels, how can you defeat a little devil like you, a venerable level? However, Edisha was very tight-lipped, so the giant snake creature did not dare to act rashly, so it could only bow its head and listen to its instructions for less than half a month. Boom! There was another bombing sound like the opening of the world, which resounded through the sky. Editha's entire shawl and long hair stood up upside down, and the electric current stimulated her to speak with an electric tone. My body is numb, it's fun. Do you think it's fun, big snake? Fun, fun. What fun? The big snake in the car just wanted to scold her. This lightning star field is a place with extremely rich nebula material, and it is also a cradle of stars. However, it will take at least hundreds of thousands of years to produce new stars. For the galaxy, hundreds of thousands of years are just a blink of an eye, but for life generally speaking, it would be too far ahead to develop and utilize it now and wait hundreds of thousands of years. Therefore, the natural scenery in this area is spectacular, but there are not many strong people who actually come to explore and use this place to practice. Edisha didn't know if she was really playful, but she strangled this giant snake creature until it was here. It's fun to have a few more days. Editha's experience, you go and have fun. Editha shouted loudly and suddenly flew off the giant snake's body. The other party's eyes flashed with a green and cold meaning. He was going to pretend to be respectful and stay away, take the opportunity to escape, investigate the origin of the little brat and then consider whether to bring someone to play, but before he could put the series of operations into practice, he just seeing the little girl's delicate little fingers flicking, azure light suddenly shot out from the gaps between her fingers. The aperture chased the stars and the moon, and soon spread to the size of a giant snake's neck, and tightly wrapped around his neck. He, let me put a pet circle for you. Wait here obediently for Miss Master, while Miss goes to practice. Edisha clapped her little hands, waved her arms, leaving the confused giant snake behind, and flew towards the area ahead where lightning and thunder were more intertwined. Well. The giant snake looked at the collar on his neck, and thinking about what the other party said, a pet collar, a sense of humiliation came to his heart, and he just wanted to cut the little kid into pieces, but he didn't. Don't dare to act rashly. He had tasted this aperture before when fighting girls, and he really couldn't deal with it. That's all, just treat her like a ghost who was frightened. At most, you can make her crazy for a while. You can't hold me back when she's gone crazy, right? He really didn't dare to look down on this little girl who was as powerful as a venerable but suppressed his own elementary level star, which was as simple as chopping vegetables and melons. Even if he had a way to summon friends to come and beat the opponent, he would. After much thought, I decided to give up. God knows if such a talented girl would have any elders watching over her. If so, calling your friends would be harmful to others and yourself. Click click click. Not long after, under the dumbfounded gaze of the giant snake, a large number of arcs suddenly increased in intensity in the lightning area in the distance, and collectively struck the little girl in the center. Just looking at it made my scalp feel numb. I don't know how the little girl let so many large pieces of lightning fall on her, and the giant snake doesn't want to know. Does this kid have masochistic tendencies? He looks so cute, so he shouldn't. In the center of the arc, Editha's delicate and childlike figure was completely immersed in the sea of electric fire. As far as the eye could see, there was white intertwined current. Her hair, which had already exploded, was stretched out. Looks like a hedgehog. The little girl was unhurried, as if she was not the one who was shaken by the electricity. She opened her fingers, and a large amount of power of the formation spread out. Her clear and transparent eyes seemed to depict countless mathematical formulas. These formulas, the data of all the lightnings were calculated, and the power of the formations corresponded one by one to deal with these lightnings. In an instant, the lightning that was dazzling just now was directly blocked by circles of blue formations. A large number of electric sparks shot on the surface of the formation. From a distance, it looked like a huge basin, all the electric fires were loaded into it. Midima. The giant snake over there felt his blood surge when he saw such a shocking sight. When he looked at the little kid again, he felt that the other person should not be a kid, but a powerful being in disguise. Otherwise, how could any venerable person be able to operate so delicately, like a robot? However, after careful observation, he discovered that the kid was not as good as he thought, because there were still many fish that slipped through the arc. Perhaps her computing power has reached its limit, or her circle power is not capable of carrying all the lightning. Thinking of this, the giant snake finally felt a little more at ease. Aditya looked up at this terrifying arc of lightning, which was almost as large as tens of thousands of kilometers. It was blocked by the power of her formations. There were beads of sweat on the little guy's forehead. He was obviously very tired, but she was not yet prepared to give up something. Instead, a pair of small hands turned over, and the basin-like array area started to move. Countless array apertures moved the lightning inside, constantly squeezing, and constantly turning the lightning material into something more solid and strange. Strength. In essence, lightning is just an electrification phenomenon, which is also mixed with various basic cosmic phenomena such as radiation, electric ions, and photons. But what if we squeeze them to the maximum extent? What will it become? Someone has probably done such an experiment, but this kind of experiment does not have much meaning. After all, it is just the most basic phenomenon of the universe. No matter how you change it, it is impossible to change the essence. Aditya is taking a different approach today. Use the power of the formation to seal the famous lightning road in this area. Electric sparks gathered in the sky, and suddenly some of them spilled out. Then Aditya flicked her fingers again, and blue formations of power were imprinted on the sky, sealing up the lightning power like a basin. Layers upon layers were added to seal it airtight. Edisha breathed hard, and Xingyu, who seemed to have no air, was sucked in a large amount of matter from around her to support the consumption in her petite body. No one knows how dangerous her current efforts are. As the saying goes, one misstep will lead to eternal hatred. She doesn't have to misstep. A slight tremor of her fingertips will cause her entire experience process to fail. And just when Edisha was working so hard, the giant snake with 6 ears and eyes looking in all directions looked at the distant starry sky with piercing eyes. There was a small group of people over there. They seemed to be attracted by the strange phenomena in this area and came here quickly. Little snake, go over and tell them not to come near, otherwise the lady will be angry. Yes. When the giant snake heard this, he cursed in his heart, who listened to you? You seem like you can't stand it anymore. Why should I help you at this critical moment? I'm already kind-hearted if I don't add insult to injury, okay? Even though he said this, after a moment of fighting between the gods and humans in his heart, the giant snake still flew towards those coming in the distance. Dear friends, there are experts practicing in front of you. I advise you not to approach them rashly. Master? Isn't a treasure born? He, you are an expert as you say. When my brothers and I took risks in the starry sky, when did we see similar phenomena in the sky and earth? It was not caused by strange treasures. What experts are, it is just the reason why you want to monopolize the treasures. Brother, please get out of the way. If I really see an expert in the past, I will accuse him. There were actually 3-star level creatures in this group of visitors. Seeing that the one standing in their way was just a junior star, they immediately felt at ease, and their eyes were full of ridicule and murderous intent. Not to mention there are treasures, even if there are no treasures, in this West Road area where there is a lot of nascent matter, causing constant chaos, Wandering strong men like them will come forward to rob and kill single-handed creatures when they see them in the starry sky. So how can you leave? Haha, forget it if you don't want to believe it. If you want to die, go and see for yourself. The giant snake's expression turned cold, and it did not obstruct him, just getting out of the way. Although Edisha asked him to stop this group of people, there were 3-star level opponents, 2 of whom were stronger than him, so why should he ask for trouble? If these guys go over, it would be better if the little guy can be intercepted or driven away, and he can regain his freedom. So at the moment, he chose to sit on the mountain and watch the fight between tigers and tigers. Hey, that's interesting. Hey, let's go there. A group of strong men happily rushed towards the place where the sky and earth seemed to be. How dare you come here to see my lady's electric fire? Edisha was concentrating on controlling the ark, her little face was so nervous that it looked pitiful, but she did not give up her vigilance at all. She caught sight of these murderous visitors from the corner of her eye, and she immediately understood that the guards she was looking for were incompetent. I saw the tip of the little guy's little finger flicking out, and a few green electric lights suddenly shot out from the huge and shocking electric sparks. The electric light has been compressed a lot under the suppression of various array forces. What is emitted at this time is not a white electric arc, but an extremely blue electric light. This electric light has a vague potential of thunder, traveling at the speed of light. With his mobility, he dodges in front of the people who are coming. What a quick attack! It's just an arc. Are we still afraid of this? Haha, even heaven-level creatures are not afraid of ordinary arcs. Our majestic stars, ah! Several star-level stars smiled jokingly, and were about to take action to defeat those blue arcs, but they felt that the arcs that penetrated their bodies were like an overwhelming force, dozens or even hundreds of times more powerful than ordinary arcs. Immediately, this group of creatures roared crazily, fighting each other, and started a fierce fight with the arc. And those blue arcs seemed to have life, and seemed to be controlled by invisible hands and came to life. They fought back and forth with these strong men. Under the blue light, the painting style was magnificent. It's really a bit poignant. This is impossible. The giant snake creature let go of the strong men and attacked Edisha. I thought that even if Edisha was really capable or there were some expert protectors beside her, it would not be like this. But the facts are before our eyes. The Miss Edisha actually still has the strength to deal with many strong men led by 3 stars when she is trying her best to control the so-called electric basin. Her venerable level strength must be fake. Miss Master. Don't panic, the big snake is here to help. Thinking of this ghostly snake suddenly became energetic, roared loudly, and rushed into the battle group with endless courage, ready to beat up the drowned dog and help Editha deal with the group of intruders. Unexpectedly, there was a blue arc of electricity in front of him, which made his whole body numb and his muscles spasmed. Miss. What are you doing? I don't want your help. You're a bad guy too. Editha shouted with a milky voice. Miss, what you said is embarrassing for your subordinates. I didn't let them go on purpose just now. You know it well, miss. I just wanted to take action at this time. Otherwise, I would have died just now, miss. Humph, Edisha doesn't want to listen to what you say. If you tie them up, Edisha will still have to practice. Okay, I'll tie you up right now. The girl with the giant snake heart is so powerful. When she was going all out to deal with thousands of lightnings, she suppressed 3 stars and their subordinates at the same time. She still had time to attack herself who suddenly appeared. This kind of strength made him unique. In fact, the giant snake doesn't understand that Edisha's multitasking is just a basic thing. People used to have an intelligent brain with more than 10 million cores, and it was not easy to multitask. Basic practice, don't 6. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3086. Creek. Within the entire normal starry sky, there was an unprecedented and heart-wrenching creaking sound. If you're going to kill yourself, don't blame the snake for being ruthless. The giant snake escorted all the uninvited guests to the edge of the sea of arc fire and looked back at the little kid whose whole body was buried in the center of the white light. The breath of life that this little girl exudes all over her body is absolutely impossible to fake. However, the terrifying strength and fighting ability she displayed are completely inappropriate for her age. I am afraid that if she is not a child of a big family, she is the clone of a powerful person, or some kind of unique life form. It has to be said that these powerful men in the universe have pretty good analytical skills, and they can analyze correctly in just a moment. Edisha is indeed a unique intelligent brain life form. After learning the skills of Onmyodo, the ability of the formation, and the perfect conversion of body cells into formation genes without exception, the characteristics of his life form are probably unique in the universe. Humph, you are just a person who pretends to be powerful. Among the captured strong men, some were unconvinced and became angry with shame. But more than anything, his heart was full of fear. One of the intermediate stars looked at Edisha in the distance with an ugly expression, then looked at the giant snake creature guarding them, and said hesitantly, "You, but the famous Snake King nearby. It is said that he almost made a big deal a few years ago." "Oh? I didn't expect that there are colleagues who know me." "Yes, I am the Snake King in the rumors." "Your Excellency Snake King, you and I must have had a relationship. That strong girl must not be related to you, so why would you sacrifice your life for her? If you are willing to let me go, I will give you half of the wealth of my power when I turn around. Offer it with both hands." The giant snake's eyes suddenly became sharp, and he looked at the stellar middle-level man and said decisively, "You bastard, my loyalty to the lady is as great as heaven. You can't even think of buying me off with a small favor." Who believes it? All the powerful creatures present could only roll their eyes. Isn't this giant snake afraid that the little brat won't dare to express any emotion after hearing the words here? But if it were them, they wouldn't dare to have any second thoughts. Recalling the scene just now still made their hearts beat like drums, and they felt unbelievable. A young life form that only exuded a venerable level wave actually captured so many of their masters in just 1 or 2 moves. If you tell anyone, it will be regarded as a fairy tale or urban legend. But reality is better than fiction. Anyway, they know that if they and others don't find a way to escape, what awaits them may not be a good outcome. Puff. While she was racking her brains, the thousands of arcs over there were also compressed to the end. No matter how much Edissa increased the power of the formation, the azure halo of light circled one after another, locked tightly in the endless white light. Between the groups, she could no longer compress the light group even 1 millimeter. She immediately understood that the compression this time was over. The little guy stretched out his finger, and saw the lightning and thunder compress to the limit, turning into a blue and white ring, which was put on his delicate and clean finger. There is a dense flow inside it. If you look carefully, you can notice that the endless thunder seems to be pregnant with the power to destroy the world. Okay, Edisha is great. Edisha raised her little fists, her whole body was covered with sweat, and she screamed to cheer herself up. The lady is great, the lady is unparalleled, the best in the world. There was a strange light in Edisha's eyes, and she looked at the person who agreed with her. It was the giant snake creature. There are many people who have to flatter people, but the flattery of this giant snake is the result of Edisha's hard work for a long time. It is just the right time, which makes Edisha think that this flattery has nothing to do with it. Different. Yeah, Edissa is great. Unparalleled in the world, number 1 in the world. You are very good. Edisha wants you to be Edissa's true subordinate. Thank you, Miss Edisha, I am very willing to help you from now on. The giant snake's eyes were vague, but his expression seemed to be quite surprising, and he immediately agreed to the request. At this juncture, any indecision on his part may cause the little girl to have a bad impression of him. Even the three major stars, together with the siege of more than 10 half-star experts, could not make this little girl panic. He did not think that leaving a bad impression on the other party would have a good ending for him in the future. So why not just work hard now, and just say he is a subordinate? Besides, being a subordinate to such a being, there seems to be nothing to resist when you think about it. Adisha shook her baby fat little body, and the beads of sweat seemed to fall off on their own and flew into the air. Soon she returned to a clean and refreshing little girl. Her rosy little face was full of coquettishness and naivete. Cute. These people are so bad. They come here to scare people while Adisha is training. Aditha's choice of words was very strange, but it was also clear that she was reproaching the group of uninvited guests who were tied up tightly. Miss, please be clear. I am just seeing a strange phenomenon in this area. As the official patrol officers here, we are just fulfilling our duties and coming to investigate. Please forgive me, miss. Let's wait for the crime of destroying your cultivation. Yes, miss, we have a reason for everything. If miss doesn't want to believe it, you can ask the Chuxing forces. Our identities are officially reported. When the giant snake heard this, he stopped talking. He also has the so-called official identity, but it is an operation that most powerful people in this area will do. He carries evidence of collusion with the Chuxing forces. No matter what he does, he will have great convenience, just like him. If he can beat him, he will be a bandit, but if he cannot beat him, he will suddenly become an official. As long as he is afraid of the people of Chuxing's influence, he will almost waver in killing them. It's like a gold medal to avoid death, but how much does the Chuxing forces really value their life and death? This is not necessarily the case. At most, the collusion with them is of a personal nature, and it really rises to the level of the primary star power. They are just a few stars, and they are not qualified. You're from the Chuxing force, that's even better. Aditha will beat you up. It's okay if I don't say it, but when I say it, Adisha becomes angry. Why did you and your master's brother run to the Chuxing force? It wasn't because the Chuxing forces were causing trouble in the Yin-Yang sect's territory. Adisha had just sweated a lot because of her training. She was tired and hungry. She missed Xiao Yu even more these days and was in an extremely unhappy mood. Now the person who claims to be Chuxing she appears in front of us, isn't he a ready-made relief package? Aditha rubbed her little fists and greeted the strong men who were bound by the power of her formation, beating these beings until they were stunned. Not to mention that the Chuxing forces were okay, but to say that this little girl actually beat them up, what does that mean? Is it because she doesn't know how high the sky is, or because the other party doesn't even know where he is now? This is the hinterland of the west route of the First Star Force. No matter how chaotic it is, the control of the First Star Forces is absolutely reliable and foolproof. I'm sorry. Miss, I made a mistake. In fact, I am not a member of the First Star Force at all. Yes, I'm sorry, miss, we deliberately had a relationship, please forgive me, miss. Some people couldn't help it anymore and quickly distanced themselves from the Chuxing forces. Adissa's childish voice sounded cold. Okay, if you dare to lie to Adissa, let's see Adissa beat you up. This time, the punch is even more powerful. The few stars who were beaten looked at each other during the beating, and bitter tears flowed down from their eyes. Who made them do the wrong thing? Ahem, miss, I wonder if your harvest just now was disturbed by this group of rude people. The giant snake was still watching from the side and deliberately interrupted Adisha from continuing her attack when she seemed to be less angry. Adisha happened to be a little bored of beating these huge sandbags, and it was no fun to fight them. She was about to stop, when she happened to borrow the donkey from Slope. It's not that the giant snake is kind-hearted, but he thinks that he also has an official status. If he is stabbed by Edissa in the future, he can be beaten according to the current standards. He feels that he can bear it, and it will be difficult to beat him again. This group of rubbish can't disturb the harvest of this Miss Edisha. Edisha, your experience is a great success. That's great. I wonder if this ring is. The giant snake didn't know if he had figured out the little kid's character correctly. He looked around and drew Edisha's attention to the harvest. Sure enough, little Edisha immediately forgot that she was punishing the prisoners, and happily showed her little finger, wearing a sparkling white stone-like thing on it. It may seem unattractive, but the giant snake who witnessed its birth process knew very well what incredible power this little ring contained. This is an electric array stone. Editha thought it was very powerful, right? Editha giggled, and her bright fingers curved in an arc, allowing the giant snake to better appreciate the tourmaline in her hand. Although the giant snake didn't understand what tourmaline was, it still tried its best to flatter him. He didn't understand, but someone else understood, and was even shocked. That was an almost mountain-like majestic creature that existed in the subspace at some point, a giant mosquito. Jia Yan has already arrived here. After seeing various behaviors of Edisha, he gave up meeting the little girl directly, but as a bystander, he quietly watched the scenes of her condensing the formation tourmaline and defeating the many uninvited guests. When he saw her using endless formation circles to trap countless electric arcs, Jia Yan had already gained a new perspective and was slightly shocked. Seeing the mid-level strength of the venerable Edisha again, beating several star-level and half-star-level minions they brought until they were unable to fight back, Jia Yan became slightly silent. There was more than shock in his eyes, but more profound emotions emerged. Array tourmaline? This principle is unheard of. Even if I could think of it, I would never try it. Jia Yan shook his head and cast his eyes on the ring like lightning. The power contained in the ring is naturally extraordinary, but for him, a junior territory lord, it is nothing more than that, and it is difficult to even hurt him. For this thing, I'm afraid Edisha spent countless efforts, and even Jia Yan vaguely noticed that what she consumed was not just strength, but also wasted a certain formation gene. In other words, she did not hesitate to delay her improvement progress for the sake of the thing in her hand. What exactly is this? Jia Yan's eyes were slightly suspicious, and he had many associations. It's probably some kind of trump card, but relying solely on this trump card, can Edissa defeat the powerful person at the top of the star? I am afraid that the primary level galaxy will definitely not be able to handle it, but the false galaxy level, it is still possible to fight, but she paid such a price just to have an existence that can deal with the strength of the false galaxy level in the future? Jia Yan's eyes revealed even more confusion. What is certain is that if Edisha didn't come up with this formation tourmaline, there should be no chance of being promoted to the late stage of the Venerable within half a year. And to be promoted to the late stage of the Venerable, with her own formation genetic background, she can assist the formation. With the treacherous control of Tau skills, it is not impossible to defeat the strongest person at the top of the star. Will she waste this opportunity just to create a means to fight against the false galaxy in the future? Jia Yan suppressed his doubts, but after thinking about it, he didn't say anything or make any plans to show up. He said he would give her 1 year to practice, otherwise he would have to take her away when he showed up. Wouldn't it interrupt the little one's hard-earned breakthrough experience? He believed that Edisha had her own plans. Humph, this young lady is so powerful. Go and capture these guys. Edisha will take them to collect the ransom. Not only will Edisha become more powerful, but she will also make a lot of money. Yes. The giant snake didn't expect that Edisha was so heartless. People said that she had the official status of the Chuxing force, but she still dared to talk about going out to ask for a ransom. Wasn't this just throwing herself into a trap? But he didn't say anything. After these few days of dealing with each other, he probably figured out the little guy's temperament routine. He is just a little adult. The more you say something to her, the more she wants to prove it. If you want to persuade her again, then, the eight-headed cow, it's impossible to pull it back. It's better to wait for a while and let her get over it before talking. Miss, why don't we personally arrange the ransom for you? We each have our own family background, but our subordinates and family members don't know it. And we can arrange it for you ourselves. You are satisfied? That's right, your words are rude, but you are asking our subordinates to pay the ransom. We are afraid that our subordinates will steal our property. Maybe you won't receive much money, so you might as well let us do it. A group of captives talked a lot and tried to comfort Edisha. But the speed with which their eyes turned was probably not really thinking about Edissa, but rather troubling Huawa's guts. Regarding this scene, the giant snake-like grass on the wall had a vague look in his eyes and finally chose to keep silent. Edisha doesn't believe you. Brother, the master has said that anyone who confuses the public with evil talk will be killed. Besides, Edisha will beat you to death. Editha's method of dealing with them was simple. She raised her small fists, and the soul-stirring power surged between them. In an instant, all the noise disappeared, and all the words of the group of chattering people were no longer spoken, and the atmosphere did not dare to come out. This is so good. Master Brother said, this is called a cheap bone, Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3087. Editha was once a smart brain, but her way of dealing with people was far from perfect. She thought a lot about picking up the missing pieces, but she still couldn't resist the seductive words of the captives, especially when she heard them say, Miss, think about it, if you return home, you will send so many things to your family for no reason. Don't money and resources make families look at us differently? This sentence shocked Edisha's heart and she strongly agreed with it. When she came home and saw her master's brother, she was carrying big and small bags. She was dumbfounded and praised her repeatedly. She couldn't help but giggle when she thought about it. Okay, Edisha will go home with you to get the money. Edisha's formation is very powerful. You don't have to struggle. This little kid has greed. Jia Yan, who was in the subspace, felt like a little kid for the first time, staring at the scenery outside for a long time with great interest. He's not planning to show up anytime soon. After talking about 1 year, it was a 1-year training period. Unless there was a crisis that Edissa couldn't solve, it was absolutely impossible for him to take action. This is indeed the time for Edissa to see her true nature and understand herself clearly. Even Jia Yan was surprised by the new face she brought. This is a little money fan. In the starry sky, Edisha pursed her lips and looked awkwardly at the string of strong men she had captured behind her. It was very difficult to lead them to their respective families. Because going there one by one wasted too much time, and she only had half a year left. Take these people to their house to get their things. Ah. Yes. The giant snake was dumbfounded when Edisha pointed it out. Did this little girl forget that she was similar to this group of people and was also arrested, but she was asked to lead another way? But he obviously thought too much. Buzz. The formation collar around the giant snake's neck suddenly tightened, causing him to feel pain as if his soul was being burned. Do you feel it? This formation is unique to Edisha. If you run away, they will explode on their own in a month and cut off your head. No, my subordinate is very loyal to the young lady and has already surrendered to the guidance of the young lady. How could he be tempted to run away? The giant snake looked at the blue halo around its neck in fear and said duplicitously. If it weren't for this array collar, he could turn around and fly away. Would Editha still be able to find him in the Nyo universe? After thinking about it, Edisha suddenly thought of a more efficient way. Each of them put a halo on the group of strong men, leaving only the one with the most money. The others dispersed and went back to collect money and materials to give to her. Jia Yan watched her operations in the subspace and felt that this little guy was really talented. I am not afraid that they will look for reinforcements when they turn around, or find other ways to get rid of Edis's control. But that's right, Edisha doesn't want to develop in this area for many years. Half a year is not long, and it counts as many as they can come back. As for what kind of army the other party will find to encircle and suppress, Edisha must have nothing to fear. All the backup plans Jia Yan left for her are still there. Hey, I forgot about this when I thought about it. I just noticed that the power of the formation I gave him seemed to have undergone some kind of change. Jia Yan felt leisurely while observing, and quietly came to the subspace where Edisha was, and opened the formation power he left to Edisha. This is still the technique used by Jia Yan when he pushed away Edisha, but many of the structures inside have long been changed beyond recognition. Jia Yan didn't care if Edisha changed her things, he didn't care about trivial matters if it meant big things. Sure enough, this little guy has made a lot of changes. Many of the profound structural meanings are astonishing even to me. Her talent in the formation is really astonishing. Jia Yan looked at it for a moment and couldn't help but sigh. If he had known that Edisha had such a talent, he should have guided her into the realm of formations. But it's not too late, or in other words, the time is just right. Jia Yan remained silent like this, watching Editha perform a genius operation. Half a month later, he received the ransom from the first strong man in the family. However, the person who came was not the other party alone, but a gangster. A large number of strong men and even family troops came from Yang, but the opponent was afraid of it. After understanding the power of Edisha's formation, he hesitated again and did not launch an attack. Instead, he turned around and sent the ransom amount that Edisha needed. Not much, it was just right to dismiss a stellar powerhouse. Goodbye, Miss Editha, I will definitely keep your advice in mind in the future. If I have the opportunity, I will definitely repay it in full. No need, Edisha is fine, you don't need to pay it back. Edisha didn't seem to hear the other party's quarrel, and sent a group of powerful family members away. With such a sample, within the month agreed by Edisha, several strong men successively sent supplies, which made the little guy smile. And among the 7 or 8 powerful families or forces, there will always be some who are stubborn. Are you the so-called little genius girl? In my opinion, you are just a yellow-haired girl. A powerful being came to the place agreed upon by Edisha. He looked down at the little thing, which was only as thick as a hair, like stars over the moon. Among those who came, a strong man from the beginning of the star stood uncertainly behind the crowd. Around his neck was the collar that Edisha had worn. At this time, the collar was on the verge of exploding, but the family was unwilling to do anything for him. After spending a lot of money and material resources, he chose to confront Edisha head-on. Yeah, Edisha is a yellow-haired girl. Edisha is still very young. Edisha seemed unable to hear the sarcasm in the other party's words, and answered while jumping up and down in the starry sky. Humph, Miss Edisha, our family can be considered a wealthy family in the local starry sky. There are 6 peak star warriors in the family, and more than 50 junior and middle star warriors. Are you provoking this family so rashly? You have to think clearly about the trouble it will cause for you and the forces behind you. It's amazing, there are 6 star peaks, Edisha looked shocked. It's good that you know. Then please obediently lift the imprisonment on this young man of my clan. No. Pay the money with one hand and deliver the goods with the other hand. Edisha is not afraid of you. Have you forgotten that there are 6 star peaks in our clan? I am one of them. Is it possible that you can still escape from me? Don't force me to bully the small ones in person. No. Edisha is not afraid of you. Seeing the little girl shaking her head like a rattle, the faces of the other family members also turned gloomy. They didn't want to offend this little girl with a big background, but the clay figurine also had a bad temper, and besides, the family is definitely considered a wealthy family in this lightning starry sky. If they give in this time, their family's prestige will definitely be greatly affected. If you don't eat the toast, you'll have to drink wine as a penalty. Little girl, you are a fool. The old family man took action directly. The star peak exists, and it is the star peak in the prosperous place in the central star field of the Milky Way. Although it is not as good as the same level in the center of the Chu star force, on the West Road, the absolute overlord level is better than the star peak that Jia Yan has fought in the past. Nothing less. Bullying the small with the big is shameless. Editha used the other person's words to curse, while a large amount of formation power surged from her fingertips. Jia Yan witnessed the scene deep in the subspace. He was about to intervene, but he had an idea and stopped his plan to assist. This was the first time that Jia Yan saw Edisha go all out after achieving the perfect level of genetic talent in formation. Sure enough, she is borrowing the power of the formation I gave her, and she has actually used that power until now. Edisha did not fight head-on with a mere venerable level strength, but used her delicate little fingers to pop out the array power given by Jia Yan. About half of this power was left, and the girl's smiling aura suddenly changed. Jia Yan's face moved. Little Edisha, who was still an intermediate level master just now, had absorbed most of the energy that gave the power of the formation due to the increase in her perfect level talent. Every cell in her body had swallowed up the power of the formation, as if her entire body had been swallowed up. Became the incarnation of the formation. Good guy, the array gene talent is in her hands, but she can use it like this. Who taught her? Or did she think of all this alone? He had long known that Edisha was unique in her array talent, but at this moment, Jia Yan still felt that he lacked knowledge about the little brat. This little genius is really amazing. In addition, he also felt more through little Edisha's moves and skills. She obviously did not specialize in combat and training, but instead focused her talent research on the combination of Tao and Onmyo. It will have an extremely far-reaching impact on Jia Yan's ability to carry forward and perfectly expand the formation in the future. All I can say is that the little guy is so well behaved. Ascend to the half-star level? Is this your secret method? It's just a half-star level, just hitting an egg against a stone. The old man at the top of the star sneered without thinking and continued his offensive. On the other hand, the expression of the powerful man behind him who was at the beginning of the stellar level and had been kidnapped by Edisha suddenly froze. When Edisha attacked them, she only had the strength of a venerable, and her main focus was on the lightning basin at that time. Then they would still be defeated. Now the little guy is going all out, and using a wonderful method to increase his strength to half-star primary stage. Ancestor, don't. Before he finished speaking, everyone present saw a scene that made their hair stand on end. Edisha stared intently at the old strong man who was slapped with a giant palm. Then the hidden murderous intention in her eyes flashed away, and she saw only half a circle of formations in her wrist. The halo suddenly shot out, and in the blink of an eye it enlarged to a size that exceeded the size of the strong man at the top of the star. It covered the sky and the earth, overwhelming everyone present with its boundless momentum. Slap you to death. Editha yelled loudly, her fingertips dropped, and the formation circle was also pressed down hard. Boom, a majestic scene unfolded in the starry sky, and the old man of the family with a sure win expression on his face suddenly changed his demeanor. He suddenly realized that there was something wrong with his head, and when he used all his strength to resist upward, it was too late, and the blue aperture shot his head open, leaving large areas of bloody flesh and blood, adding a rich color to the pitch-black night sky. Quick, withdraw quickly. As expected of a strong man at the pinnacle of the stars, the old man's head was broken, but he was still alive and well. However, he was also hit by this blow and lost his energy and spirit. When he looked at Edisha, his eyes changed from being aloof to horrified. I just feel like I hit something wrong today. The little girl's breath of life couldn't deceive anyone. He believed that the child was just a being under the age of 50. At such an age, for a star peak being, his grandchildren were dozens of generations younger. If you take action, you should be crushed by your own side. But the reality is that he has become a crushed person, which is completely beyond imagination and beyond expectation. Don't run away, hand over Aditya's things, or I'll beat you for Disha. Aditya's evil dragon roared loudly, causing all the visitors from the other family to fall into a certain state of freezing. Even the seriously injured Star Peak expert did not dare to move. Miss, my family actually came here with property and supplies. I wonder, is it enough to pay the same funds now? Yeah, okay, Aditya is not greedy. My brother and the master said that greed is the original sin. Jia Yan was in the subspace, so embarrassed that he had to squeeze out of 3 rooms and 1 living room. Aditya really liked to talk about the high-sounding words he said, but Jia Yan knew that he was just saying them casually. He didn't take many things seriously, but Aditya remembered them and regarded them as golden words. This is a bit too embarrassing. If you are not greedy, how can you grow up from a little mosquito? Aditya, the master is just talking. It would be too much for you to preach in public. Okay, Miss Aditya, I'll leave the property and resources behind, but please show your kindness. The old strong man at the top of the star lowered his posture one after another, completely losing the high-flying strong man's appearance just now. Find the book garden. Those who come from this family even say that Aditya is indeed better than seeing her. She is a reasonable and polite young genius with a talent that is so high that it is jaw-dropping. The shameless braggadocio of Aditya made her blush and squirm, not daring to admit that she was the one she was talking about, but she wanted to hear more. After this battle, the name of little Aditya spread widely in this area as if it had wings. After all, not everywhere can produce a genius with half-star strength who can defeat the strongest of the stars. After Aditya finished borrowing Jia Yan's formation power, the power immediately dissipated by another 30%. Next time she borrows it again, she may only be able to reach the peak of the Venerable's strength. But who would dare to step forward and retaliate against such a defiant little genius? This is on the premise that the little guy has not revealed his family background. There have been rumors in the market that this little guy's family background may shock the entire West Road. Maybe he is from Lord Shuxing's direct lineage. That is a terrifying family background that can overturn all the forces in the West Road. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3088. Certainly. The strong men on the West Road guessed wrongly. Aditya was not from the Chuxing family. But his true identity is that he is no weaker than a direct descendant of the Chuxing family. A strong person at the same level as Chu Xing is her master and one of her only disciples. He is extremely valued, and his love is more like that of a father and his daughter. Who dares to say that she is younger than a direct descendant of the Chuxing family? Not to mention Jia Yan's true strength, I'm afraid it exceeds Chu Xing. Think about it this way, this little guy is arrogant and really has capital. He is completely different from when I debuted. Jia Yan is deep in the subspace, expressing his envy, jealousy, and hatred without concealment. Who allowed the little guy to have such a great supporter as his master? His life is so good, but it's not like he has been struggling along the way since he came out of the earth. But why do I always feel that Aditya and Xiaoyi are, including their family members on the earth, are growing up relying on my towering ancient tree, and I still feel happy? Jia Yan smiled self-deprecatingly. He also wanted to have a backer or something, but at this point in his life, it was no longer possible. That's all. This child doesn't seem to be easily bullied. I don't think about taking action casually. Let's see how she solves the problem on her own. As for me, it's good to have half a day to spare. Jia Yan finally figured it out. Children and grandchildren will have their own blessings, and Edisha is a monkey spirit. It's not clear who will bully whom. If your elders are fine, don't get involved. The girl who calls herself Edisha has a big problem with her origins. The West Road of the Chuxing Force. It is said that Lord Chuxing deliberately named this place after he accidentally acquired the territory of the Chuxing Force. He felt the strange terrain of the East and West Roads and thought of some mysterious things. On the West Road, the so-called road supervisor's mansion was set up by the Chuxing forces. At this time, people from the road supervisor's mansion gathered together. The incident caused by a little brat like Edisha is not a big deal or a small one. The situation involving many star-level forces, for this West Road area, the director of the road supervisor mansion, no matter how greedy for pleasure, must have heard about it. The governor was a domain lord level expert. After hearing about this situation and knowing the age of the little girl, he couldn't help but remain silent for a long time. Let's do this. One of you will go to the liaison office in person and ask about the attitude of the central region, especially the origin of the little girl. Then we can deal with it in a targeted manner. I go. The deputy governor personally rushed to the liaison office to communicate directly with the capital of the Central Star Force, which was dozens of light years away. After thinking about it for a while, the governor sighed. According to rumors, that little guy is probably no more than 50 years old. He can defeat a large number of star-level players before he is 50, including several star-level experts. I have lived for more than 1,000 years, and now I know that the waste is actually the governor himself. For a moment, he felt that he, who claimed to be a genius, was no different than a waste. The governor is overthinking it. According to intelligence rumors, the little girl is using some kind of foreign object at most. Her own strength may not exceed half a star level. Governor, there is no need to underestimate yourself. The governor looked at the speaker, who was a stellar subordinate. He nodded and looked at the only half-star present and said indifferently, "Son, next I will personally go over to meet with the little girl, and you will come with me. Go, watch, and learn from me carefully, no matter what kind of power he comes from. Someone who is only at the level of a venerable dares to go out on adventures, which shows that his courage is commendable. You must learn from this person's magnanimity." Yes. The half-star level was the direct descendant of the Lord of the West Road Palace, and he nodded with a somewhat dissatisfied expression in comparison. The governor hoped that his son would succeed, but the child only wanted to settle down and make a living, and had no intention of becoming a strong man. For hundreds of years, all his thoughts were spent on how to be lazy, how to find flowers, and have fun. Palace Master, there is news from the central capital. It is said that someone went to Mr. Chuxing in person to ask for the news. Mr. Chuxing said that he did not know about the little girl. In other words, the little girl may not be any of our Chuxing forces. The children of the family. Oh. It's not the new blood in our Chuxing force. This is interesting. Let's go and meet this little girl in person who is rumored to be extremely arrogant. The Lord of the West Road Palace became even more interested and personally got up and rushed to the place where Edisha was arrogantly controlling the hostages and demanding ransom. It is said that mentally retarded children have a lot of joy. In fact, smart children also have a lot of joy. Even Jia Yan laughed out loud several times in the subspace when he saw Aditha's strange operations these days. He scolded the little girl for being too frivolous and thought of many interesting things in order to force her out. Those family properties. You know how to get things done, this little devil. Oh. A domain lord level, isn't it an ordinary domain lord level? Just as Jia Yan watched Adisa dominate the audience again, causing the few old scholars who came to argue with Adisa to be very embarrassed, he suddenly felt something and cast his gaze somewhere in the starry sky. This has been a month for Adisha to collect wealth. Depending on her predetermined plan, she should end her request today and continue her experience. However, This impressive visitor would obviously greatly interrupt Edisha's schedule. Jia Yan didn't want to take action for the time being. I just wanted to see how the little girl would respond in front of a strong man who could not fight against him. Little girl, if you bully them again, these old scholars will be pissed off by you. Between heaven and earth, there is an incomparable momentum. The high-end powerhouses of the established forces are different. Unlike many ordinary forces or forces in fringe areas, the aura of the Lord of the West Road Palace is calm and peaceful. He feels as powerful as an abyss. He is not overbearing, nor does he appear to be evil, but gives people the appearance of a truly famous and upright high-level person. He didn't bully Edissa, he just released his momentum to show his intention to come, and the momentum disappeared in a flash and disappeared completely. Boom boom boom. Along with the mighty sound, the palace master and his party also flew over quietly, as steady as Mount Tai. Even though they did not reveal any momentum, several of them had a huge figure of 20 to 30 kilometers, which also brought people indescribable feeling of oppression. But the little Edisha was not afraid. She held her two tender hands, tilted her little head, and looked at the visitor calmly. The Lord of the West Road Palace looked at each other with several capable subordinates. These powerful domain lords were all a little surprised, and each of them showed a little solemnity. If you are not familiar with strong people like them, or are familiar with strong people stronger than them, you cannot pretend to be calm and composed. The little girl looked at them, but there was no movement at all, indicating that she was already accustomed to the domain lord level. Do you also want to fight with Edisha? Edisha said innocently. Are we looking for a fight with you? The palace master was finally choked by her words. Does the little girl know what she is talking about? A child exuding the aura of an intermediate level venerable, saying that she wanted to fight against a powerful domain lord level person, sounded like a fantasy, but she was still a teenager, so I'm afraid it was just the childish words of a child. We don't want to fight with you, kid. I am the master of the West Road Palace. Are you from outside the Chuxing influence? As soon as the Lord of the West Road Palace spoke his words, the eyes of other family members who were entangled with Edissa about the ransom suddenly lit up. No wonder, they couldn't find out the origin of this little one no matter how hard they checked. After the palace master's investigation, did he decide that she was not a child from the Chuxing force? But how dare she? A child at the mere venerable level went to stir up trouble in the first star force. Even if she had the help of magical weapons, she couldn't think that the first star force was incompetent and didn't even have anyone at the venerable level to control her. That's right, Edisha is not from your place. Edisha is practicing, Edisha said honestly and innocently. Looking at her appearance, people have infinite beautiful thoughts, but then looking at the strong man lying on the ground and wailing, it is clear that this little girl has done some good deeds before, which seems harmless. God knows if he is wearing a mask on his little face. Little girl, can you tell me where you are from? You are causing destruction on our West Road. We have to tell your family and ask your family to take you back and educate you. Edisha was unhappy, jumped up and flew up, level with the palace master's eyes, and shouted loudly, "Are you polite? I didn't cause any damage, please don't slander me." The master of the palace felt something in his heart, knowing that this little guy was really afraid that the family would know that she was causing trouble. You can guess a lot of things with just a few words, which is a basic skill for the upper class people who are in charge of a government. Not only did he guess that there was a huge force behind Edisha, but he also guessed that this little guy was hiding something from his family, or had lost contact with his family, and was causing trouble in the West Mansion that he was in charge of. Dad, this child really doesn't understand etiquette, why don't I teach her a lesson? Behind the palace lord's legitimate son who looked very similar to him came out of the crowd and bowed with clasped fists respectfully. Edisha was very smart, but her ears were quite sharp. She directly heard what this guy said and immediately jumped up on the spot. You don't understand etiquette. Adisha is the most polite. It's you who are rude and disturbed Adisha's experience. If you want to fight, come on, I'm not afraid of you. Adisha broke through the words of the palace lord's son, which made the other party quite embarrassed. However, when she saw Adisha stretched out her little hand and pulled out a hammer that was hundreds of times as long as her body from the subspace, she also walked out without fear. The palace master wanted to stop the child, but when the words came to his lips, he endured it. His only legitimate son has been depressed by his side these years, and he also understands that it is not easy for him to express his position today. It is better to let him go up and try his hand. Anyway, he can watch it and nothing will happen. No surprises are allowed on either side. I don't know where the girl came from, but she is very impressive and indeed has some ability. If she can't beat her own son, she can later use the excuse of children's competition to ask her about the situation in her family. Next, it will depend on the other person's family background. Whether it will end peacefully or treat the other person with his own treatment and ask for 10 times the ransom depends on the situation when you see it. He didn't believe that he, a top-notch territory lord who was close to a senior territory lord, could not suppress such a small scene. After thinking about it, Adisha rushed forward without even waiting for the palace lord's son to say something serious. Ever since Jia Yan gave Adisha the first magic weapon hammer, she has been very fond of this very violent and simple weapon. All the previous weapons were scrapped, but she was stunned when she was practicing in the palace with Jia Yan's real body. Pestering Jia Yan to make her such a new magic hammer. Suitable for her current mid-level strength of the Venerable, it is full of power. With one hammer blow, the sea is open to all rivers, and the positive and negative forces of yin and yang bloom on the tip of the hammer. Adisha also superimposed 3 layers of formation power on the surface of the hammer. The azure brilliance caused the hammer to fall suddenly twice as fast. The fierce momentum caused the opponent to make extremely serious miscalculations in an instant. So fast. Although the direct son of the palace lord is not outstanding, he is still the son of a powerful domain lord. His talent is not bad. The half-star level has even crushed the high-level Aditya. He reacted instantly after losing his mind. Another new formation move. In the subspace, Jia Yan naturally had a panoramic view of every detail of the scene, and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. After Adisha left her side, her talent for perfect formations increased explosively, and various methods emerged in endlessly. Jia Yan hadn't fully studied the formation method she used last time to collect lightning, and now she came up with it. Stacking power formation comes. The talent of formation path was thrown into this little guy, and he accidentally found a real person who can make it prosperous. Jia Yan shook his head fiercely, he was not convinced. The formation path was not either talented or powerful. He was stronger. If he reached a bottleneck in the future, he might have to lead a new path of superimposing the formation path with yin and yang dao. As for now, let's let this little guy dominate for a while. It really can't be compared. Jia Yan has serious doubts that Adisha may develop the battle method of array and yin and yang into a whole new world in a very short period of time. Even he, Jia Yan, will have to practice what Adisha has developed. Formation techniques. Young people are to be feared. The waves behind in the Yangtze River push the waves ahead. Puff. As he spoke, the dazzling magic weapon hammer outside fell, squeezing the palace lord's son down without any tricks, and breaking his palm that was resisting. The hammer then slapped his head, breaking the bones. It cracked and blood gurgled out. You dare to kill someone during a sparring match? How brave! Suddenly, a drastic change occurred. A domain lord next to the palace lord was already furious. He raised his hand at will and violently stirred up Adisha's magic weapon hammer with a burst of spiritual power, sending the hammer flying thousands of kilometers away. Outside. Not broken? The other party was also a little surprised. His original intention was to explode the hammer, but unexpectedly it only caused the hammer to fly away, but did not cause the hammer to explode. This shows that the maker of this hammer has extraordinary strength. Who asked him to curse? Edisha was not injured, and the other party deliberately did not hit her hard, but no one expected that she would be so domineering under such circumstances. With a move of her hand, the magic weapon hammer formation shone brightly, and from thousands of kilometers away the outside automatically spun back to the small hand. The other hand was on the waist, and he glared at the domain masters without fear. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3089. Dare you glare at people? Is this little guy heartless or courageous? Even if you have a backstage, you should give in when faced with such a situation. No matter how awesome your family is, they are not here now. Everyone is weird again. Sir, how are you injured? I want her dead. I want her dead. The son of the palace lord, who was so angry that he received a serious blow from Edisha, felt his face was greatly lost, and he roared aggressively. A personality with low self-esteem is extremely sensitive under certain conditions, and being humiliated in public is doomed to make him furious. Inferior and sensitive, they have the same explosive temperament. Humph, you are an outsider. I respect your talent, but I never thought you would dare to do such a heavy hand to the young master. The things this woman relies on are just some treasures. The young master will definitely not lose to her. Since you are so unbridled in the first place, you cannot allow us to be merciful. Someone should restrain your family from this unscrupulous temper. While talking, several galactic-level beings were eager to take action. There are not many opportunities to show loyalty in front of the Palace Lord and his son. Although they are at the beginning of the galaxy, there are middle-level galactic powerhouses and domain lords above them who are blocking them. If they don't seize this opportunity, they won't be able to wait for it next time. The face of the West Road Palace Master was uncertain. He looked at his son who had revealed his true colors. He had lost face in front of everyone this time. It was just a loss. He still couldn't control his temper. His plan to show his son to his subordinates was complete. Fail. That child. The master of the palace looked at Edisha, who had a bright future, and then at his son, who was unable to hold himself up. For a moment, a certain emotion came to his heart. The action he should have prevented due to his status was actually by some mistake. He acquiesced to the impulse of his subordinates. Editha blew her beard and stared. A group of galaxy-level powerhouses flew in, numbering about 10. How could she fail and be captured as these people wished? Edisha run away. She raised her voice, stepped into the subspace with her short legs, and her dark eyes were full of weirdness. As long as she is allowed to enter the subspace, she will be able to trick these strong men around. But she forgot that she had never fought against a galaxy-level being. Even the star level is just borrowing Jia Yan's formation power to do it. The actual combat effectiveness of Edisha is far from being comparable to the strong ones at the top of the star level. Want to leave? Book it for me. Editha's sudden use of her ability to travel out of space did cause the hearts of many attackers to jump. However, in the eyes of galaxy-level powerhouses, her speed was no different from that of an ant. Someone immediately shouted loudly, and the space suddenly froze. Editha's whole body was frozen, and she was shocked by a primary spiritual powerhouse from the galaxy, unable to move. Okay, we've caught her. Now it's up to the master and the young master to decide whether to kill her or capture her. Being captured by a man with strong mental power, the others walked around angrily, feeling that this time they had missed another opportunity. Big bad guy, let me go. Edisha was lifted up by the power of brainwaves, and she still kept speaking hard and spitting out fragrance. She felt that the scenery in front of her suddenly changed, and when she opened her eyes, she came to the huge creature overlooking her. It was the leader of the West Road Palace of the First Star Force. Being watched closely by a territory lord who was close to a senior territory lord level powerhouse, even a bold person like Edisha felt a little frightened. She tilted her little head and finally softened her words, "When is the time to retaliate? Can you let Edisha go? What a little kid who knows how to advance and retreat." The palace master almost laughed. He said coldly, "Oh? Do you know you are wrong?" "I know, let me go, okay. What do you think of the family materials that you blackmailed? Can Edisha give them half back? You only paid half of it after you were caught. You are really brave. How about this? You ask the forces behind you to come to our Chuxing forces and contribute 10 times the resources, otherwise we will not let you go." At this point, Edisha finally couldn't help it anymore. Why? They were wrong first. It's natural for Edisha to ask them to pay a fine, right? Why do you want 10 times my resources? It turns out you are a bad person too, bastard. How brave, how dare you disrespect the master of the palace? The domain lord around her couldn't bear it any longer, and Edisha, who was about to be beaten, couldn't take care of herself. However, the palace master personally stopped him. He turned around, looked at Edisha with a friendly look and said, "My little friend, the forces behind you are probably not small forces, but if you fight with my Chuxing forces, you are destined to suffer losses. Don't harm yourself because of your words and deeds. I have lost your power, please contact me according to my words now, and don't waste our patience anymore. No, no. Your Chuxing forces are not as powerful as ours." Edisha has indeed inherited Jia Yan's stubbornness, and dares to act arrogantly when her freedom and safety are controlled by others. "Dad, this little girl can't listen to what others say. Why don't you give her to your son, and I will teach her well for you." The direct son of the palace master clasped his fists at his side and begged for orders. But what he received was a pair of cold and piercing eyes from the palace master. "Don't embarrass yourself again. As the saying goes, knowing one's shame and then being brave. What you should be thinking about now is how to cultivate and improve your strength, and personally avenge this defeat in the future, instead of using the abilities of your fathers to avenge public and private revenge. Understand that, father? What do you mean?" "Well, my son understands." The son of the palace owner turned his eyes viciously around Edisha's face. He knew that if Edisha was captured by the palace lord, she would definitely be imprisoned on their West Palace Lord's planet. Then she would have plenty of opportunities to take revenge in person, and he would not be in a hurry. "Let's go back home. This child is easy to take care of and doesn't need to be abused." "Yes." The people who came responded one by one, bowed their hands, worshipped, and worshipped. They felt that the master of the palace acted openly and above board. He could tolerate even a little girl who didn't know the heights of heaven and earth. This shows how generous the master of the palace is. "I don't go." Suddenly, everyone thought that the little girl's fate without any injuries was the best outcome. The lovely Disha's voice shouted loudly. "You still dare to speak? Dad, this brat has no idea that you are a master. You should teach her a lesson." Finally, the palace lord's son found an opportunity and hurriedly reported. "My child, you are a criminal. This time, because of your young age, you were not punished. Please don't toast me or eat as a fine." The master of the palace frowned, feeling that this child was really ignorant. "You are the ones who are toasting me instead of being punished with the fine wine," Edisha yelled majestically. "Edisha is from the Yin and Yang Dao. If you dare to catch me and waste Edisha's precious training time, the master will beat you to death. On my Oji." In an instant, the palace master seemed to have been hit by a immobilizing spell, and several domain lords around him suddenly staggered, but they managed to avoid losing their composure on the spot. Several other star-level and galaxy-level people did not seem to react on the spot. A galaxy-level strongman even came to the edge of the mental force where Edisha was imprisoned. He roared with a ferocious expression, "You little girl who doesn't know what's good and what's wrong, what is yin-yang dao or not yin-yang dao? On behalf of the palace master, I tell you, no matter you are from yin-yang dao or black and white dao, in the eyes of my Chuxing forces, you are nothing more than a little ant. If you dare to be presumptuous, be careful with me." Bang! Before the galaxy level finished speaking, he didn't even spray much saliva on Edisha. The body that was dozens of kilometers long burst into pieces like an epiphyllum in full bloom. In an instant, the drop of a needle could be heard in the entire starry sky of the universe. Everyone was stunned, including the palace lord who was at the peak of the intermediate domain lord level and was close to the senior domain lord level. Because no one knows how the galaxy level man died, who did it, and what techniques he used. With such a presence, even the palace master felt his hands and feet were cold, and his heart of resistance could not rise. After the galaxy level powerhouse exploded, the starry sky fell into silence for an instant. The terrifying existence that everyone imagined was about to come did not move for a long time, and it seemed that it had not arrived. Huh! Edisha was just startled, and then she realized something. She looked around in confusion, her eyes lingering in the subspace, but she couldn't detect anything. Nonsense, even though Jia Yan has a huge body of 50 kilometers, he wants to make it invisible to everyone present. He has the ability to make them ignore him. Even if he stands next to Edisha, she will not know his existence. You deserve it. I'll blow you up. Edisha became more energetic, as if she had found a supporter, and the evil dragon roared, fiercely. This. Who? Who is that big shot? Why didn't the palace master react? Could it be an existence that even the palace lord had no time to react to? Could it be some senior domain lord? No. That's not right. What the kid just said was yin-yang dao. Do you know what happened in the Central Star Mansion recently? It is said that that person is the yin-yang dao. What? Then this brat, no, this lady, is from the rumored Onmyoji. For a time, many visitors finally remembered certain rumors. This rumor has not been spread to the West Road for too long. Except for the senior management with enough weight, the other subordinates have only a partial understanding of what is going on there and what the yin and yang dao is capable of. But no matter what happens, the words yin-yang dao are definitely enough to be compared with the Chuxing forces in rumors. It is even possible to crush the Chuxing forces, because even the strongest Chuxing is no match for the strongest opponent. Gudu. The palace master himself also swallowed his saliva. He was not unaware just now. Instead, I felt that in the subspace, there seemed to be some power passing by. After all, he has reached the level of almost senior domain lords, and his strength is not much different from the supreme senior domain lord second only to Lord Chuxing among the Chuxing forces. It is still possible to sense the source of power. And he knows much more about the inside story of the Central Star Mansion than ordinary powerful people. For example, he knows that the yin-yang dao Jiayan who invaded the Chu Star forces is a person who is proficient in subspace abilities and will bring Chu Star into the sky. Lord Hoshi and another person of the same rank are playing tricks on each other. At this time, the attack came from subspace. I've seen this gentleman. He didn't dare call Jiayan's name directly. Obviously the other party didn't want to show up in person, so he couldn't call him out directly. But corresponding reverence is absolutely required. Even in the headquarters of the Chuxing forces, they dared to kill everyone, let alone this mere West Road. Yeah. You all have seen it? Editha yelled with her bossy voice. I've seen this gentleman. For a time, seeing that the master of the palace had saluted in person, other big figures from the West Road had to salute in all directions, many of them with frightened and full-bodied surprise on their faces. "Who is coming?" "Sir, we just saw that this girl is naughty, so we want to teach you a lesson. We have no intention of harming her. However, if you show up in person, she should be taught by you personally. Let her go." The master of the palace can be regarded as a mature man. He speaks high-sounding words, but the actual meaning is that he is coward. After all, if it was that being who came, let alone him, even if Master Chuxing came in person, it would be difficult to stop him from saving people. The existence of the same level of subspace talent is a huge headache for any strong person. Not to mention, the rumored Lord Jia Yan is even more powerful than his peers. Even if Lord Chuxing fights against him who does not use the subspace talent, he is still at a slight disadvantage. "Thank you. Aditha is leaving." Adisha felt a lightness all over her body, and the mental power that had been restraining her relaxed completely. After smiling slyly, the little guy flew deep into the starry sky. Within a few hundred kilometers, the subspace opened up and dived into it. From now on, the sky is high and the sea is vast, allowing her birds to fly. Maybe the master's brother didn't come, but he was just a force that stayed with Adisha. Adisha's strength level is too low. She couldn't feel where the power Jia Yan released just now came from. She thought it was some kind of energy to protect her. So she ran away first out of respect. "Tear, open your little feet and run." But next to Adisha, the giant mosquito flying close to her was a little doting on her, looking at her with some helplessness. This little guy is really a troublemaker. I'm afraid as her strength gradually increases in the future, the enemies she provokes will be quite troublesome. But, she is my disciple, and she has a close relationship with me in my growth path. So what if she offends a lower-level territory lord? I will do my best to shield her from the wind and rain. Even if he is a great power above the domain lord, as long as I have enough firepower in the future, I will definitely be worthy of it. There are not many people in this life that Jia Yan treats sincerely. Parents, wives, family affection mixed with basic human qualities, they are naturally treated well. In addition, there are not many people who are enough for him to treat each other sincerely, and Adisha is the one who deserves his care the most. The little kid seemed to be protected by his father, and the strange spirits escaped in the subspace, thinking that he was clever enough to escape. In fact, it was really the master's brother who took action himself. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3090. Jia Yan has never taken care of his own children. He has grandchildren, but he is still alone, and his habits have not changed. But in recent years, the little fish Adisha has made up for this experience to some extent. Children are all much the same. Aditha seems to be extremely smart, but now that she has become a living being, she also has the character traits that a child should have. Because of its outstanding abilities, bears are more lethal than ordinary children. Jia Yan finally realized how amazing this little guy was in terms of his energy, brilliant whims, and ability to cause trouble and irritate people. After just 2 months, he witnessed Aditha hurriedly sneaking to the border of the West Road, bordering the trading planet of another senior domain lord level force, and then turned upside down inside, killing a star-level chi. He vomited blood and was seriously injured, and then he was mercilessly beaten to the Star Lord's mansion, scolding the other party in front of the galaxy-level Star Lord, but the Star Lord couldn't come up with any words to refute, and he wanted to protect his own people, but soon a subordinate trotted over and handed over a piece of information. After that, the Star Master's entire face seemed to have been struck by lightning. When he looked back, his expression had changed. With a smile like a flower, he praised Aditha for doing a good job and eliminating a big harm for the planet. "We'll definitely punish that stellar family." After such an experience, little Aditha suddenly started to tremble on the border planet. She showed off her power and was arrogant. She just had to take care of things that she couldn't understand, and people who didn't like her would definitely touch her. In just 2 months, from the Star Master's family to the local gangsters, the atmosphere on the entire planet has completely changed, just because of a little brat like her. This stinky girl, she hit her right and wrong. Jia Yan watched the process in the subspace for 2 months, and he felt that it was something new. Sometimes what Edisha did was quite efficient. At least with his method, every time he encountered a difficult kid, it was usually either the solution to the problem by force was either to be tolerated, but her naughty behavior was able to solve the problem better without making her feel uncomfortable. What is she going to do again? Under Jia Yan's attention, Edisha made new moves. On this day, Edisha swaggered out of the residence that the Star Master had specially found for her, and bought a bunch of supplies in the main city of the planet. Many of them were low-end, but some were relatively high-end, which ordinary strong people could not buy at all. But because Edisha's prestige here was established, the shopkeepers not only sold it, but even sold it without making much money. Otherwise, if the famous little brats come to do a joint law enforcement, they won't have to open their store, and they will have to go to jail. Edisha carried large and small bags, threw her things in the subspace, and headed back happily. Jia Yan approached the batch of materials purchased by Edisha and looked at them for a moment, looking a little surprised. They are all related to formation practice. Is she really studying some new formation techniques? It is certain that Edisha possesses special skills, but Jia Yan still can't figure out how far she has practiced the array skills. Because this little guy cultivates the power of formations, he never shows it to the outside world. Instead, he uses repeated calculations and exercises in his mind. His brain is like a precise instrument. He seems to be shopping, but I am afraid that he has already made some progress on certain formation problems in his mind. No less than thousands of calculations. Soon, Edisha sat down cross-legged in the hotel where she was staying, with a slightly serious look on her cute face. With Jia Yan's permission, the little guy has let go of his growth genes. In more than half a year, his delicate little body has grown up. He is half a head taller and looks much more delicate. On the face with pink makeup and jade, she quickly opened her small mouth and spit out a few sentences that Jia Yan could not distinguish. The power of the array automatically condensed in the air. Good guy. Jia Yan was quite moved. She no longer only uses her fingers to carve mental power formations. Is this just following her words? Jia Yan didn't even touch upon such an area. Because strictly speaking, he does not have the gene for converting formations, and the speed and depth of his cultivation of formations cannot be too deep. Even those disciples of the yin-yang sect who have successfully converted 50% of the formations will be better than Jia Yan. Editha's mysterious and unpredictable way of speaking was very lofty in Jia Yan's eyes. The little girl was full of temperament, which was somewhat incompatible with her serious expression. But the technical operations she performed still made people understand that she was performing something extremely important. Jia Yan couldn't bear it, fearing that some accident would interrupt her progress, so she quietly arranged spiritual power around the hotel so that no one could detect it, but generally speaking, those who entered this place would enter unconsciously. Hold your breath and be cautious. After the formations were condensed in the air, they each performed their duties and continued to float in the air. Later, a large amount of materials flew out from the subspace, most of which came from the things that the little one had purchased just now. Jia Yan also observed her operations momentarily. I have to mention that watching this little guy perform formation operations is like watching a flawless drama, every little detail is so excellent. Looking at it, Jia Yan vaguely saw something. The compound eyes of the giant mosquito burst out with a ball of brilliance, almost failing to hide his figure, and his heart was extremely shaken. It shows that even he was quite shocked after seeing what the little girl did. Could it be? Jia Yan's eyes became more and more solemn. Finally, when he saw Edisha making the material gradually take shape while putting down the array of brilliance, and the formed thing gradually turned into a very clear shadow, Jia Yan finally determined. She has actually touched upon the realm of life. It can be said that Jia Yan's shock was not pretentious at all. As we all know, the life field is the most magical field. Generally speaking, even the galaxy-level powerhouses have difficulty getting involved in this field. When Jia Yan first saw the so-called life field, he had his first contact with the Zerg Queen's clone. When the Queen of the Zerg had already reached the Domain Lord level at that time, and she was also a very unique talent among the mid-level powerhouses in the galaxy. Generally speaking, not everyone at the galaxy level could master the life domain ability. Of course, it was also because it was not necessary. For strong people who study this stuff, their efforts are not proportional to their rewards, so there are not that many strong people developing towards the field of life. But Edisha's true strength now, even if she tries hard, she has only reached the peak of the intermediate level of the Venerable. At this level of strength, he actually tried to understand the realm of life. I'm afraid it's because of her own unique life that she gained insights. In addition, when she participated in the construction of the world, she also obtained a lot of first-hand information. Jia Yan came to his senses. However, he knew why she had a life realm, but the problem was that Jia Yan still didn't know what Edisha was doing. The life created by the array and the pile of supplies? Wrong. Suddenly, Jia Yan thought of something and his whole body was shaken. He quickly turned his gaze to the constructed figure, and as he focused his gaze, he concentrated all his attention. After careful observation, he immediately discovered that this prototype of life actually contained a lot of energy in every cell. The power of array gene. This. Jia Yan's shock this time was even worse than when he learned that Edisha actually had the power of the formation. You must know that the characters who originally converted the formation genes of Edisha and others were Jia Yan and Leda. Only those with the strength of intermediate galaxy or above can master the fine power of formation operation, and more importantly, have the mental power and the level of mastery of power. What kind of strength does lovely Disha have? Unexpectedly, without even realizing it, he used unique techniques to create a life with the formation gene. The two of them are the genes that transform real life. While the lovely Disha is transforming, she is still creating life. In a sense, it is more than 10 times more difficult than what Jia Yan and the others did originally. You really just have talent and can do whatever you want. This time, Jia Yan no longer had an attitude of overlooking. He held his breath and carefully studied Edisha's operation. Although she may not be successful, this process is definitely worthy of his study and reference. I am afraid that the progress of the formation in the future will be very different. It depends on this line of observation. No shame. In the matter of cultivation, the master is the teacher, and he doesn't have the mentality of a disciple, so he doesn't allow the master to learn from his disciples. Besides, it's not like everyone doesn't know. No, this still doesn't work. After watching for a moment, Jia Yan, as a stronger person, already knew the result of this attempt by Edisha. Sure enough, just when Edisha was about to complete the operation, when she was halfway through the operation, she saw the figure burst into pieces and turned into powder. Yeah. I'm so angry. Edisha clapped her little hands and wiped away the powder and dust all over her body. Her delicate little eyebrows were all tangled into a mess. As the saying goes, only by practicing hard can you make further progress. Generally speaking, when studying this kind of thing, it is not worth being discouraged if you fail for the first time, not to mention that she has already done more than half of it, and she might just miss the mark. But if you say this to Edisha, she will sneer at you. Because she has already gone through this kind of experiment many times in her mind. To her, failure means that this path is unworkable. There is no saying that if you practice a few more times, you can succeed. This is not cultivation, but production. Don't be distracted during the process. If you are not distracted, there will be no gap in experience. What's the difference? Edisha doesn't understand. Little Edisha rarely had any problems that she couldn't solve, but facing this failure, she also felt a lot of frustration. I'm so angry. I originally wanted to tell my master about these research results. As long as I study them well, what my master is doing can be easily solved. Unhappiness appeared on Edisha's dusty little face. Jia Yan in the subspace felt warm after hearing this. He finally understood that the formation and the realm of life that Edisha created were for her own benefit. I'm afraid she wants to come up with a better way to operate the power of the array gene. After all, the previous experiments in the yin-yang sect were not sufficient, and the failure rate was too high. Edisha continued her research, and finally stopped keeping the experiment in her mind. From time to time, she took out pen and paper to write and draw in a small notebook. She also took out her brain and carried out dazzling experiments on her brain. Operation. Jia Yan also realized from her performance that the recent slowdown in this little guy's strength improvement was definitely not due to the fact that her genetic talent for perfect formations had run out, but that she deliberately did not practice hard and instead went all out. Research on Gendao genes. This is about giving yourself a gift. What a well-behaved child. Jia Yan was moved. In this way, with the trembling of everyone from the Star Master to the common people on the border planet, Editha continued her little child atrocities on the planet, showing off her power, not to mention, after that failure, there were even more. She has a reputation as a resource-robbing girl. Every time she sets her sights on something for research, no matter whose hands it is, she will come to ask for it, and will cause trouble if it is not given to her. One time, a powerful man at the beginning of the galaxy couldn't stand the fact that Editha went to his home several times to ask for an expensive material from the stars, so he wanted to take action against this little girl who everyone shunned. The result is tragic. What was a good and passionate plot turned directly into a tragedy at the end. His family was destroyed, and even he himself was subdued by the Star Master with one move. When faced with the Star Lord's suggestion that all the supplies from her family will be given to you as compensation, Editha turned a deaf ear. She only wanted those supplies and rushed back to the hotel to study them. Finally, the days passed day by day, and it came to the time she and Jia Yan had agreed to see each other again for a while. During this process, not only the people of the border planet were uneasy, but Editha was also in a bad mood day by day. Even Jia Yan, who witnessed her whole experience in the subspace, also cast an indelible shadow. It's not about anything else, it's just that the number of times Edisha failed is increasing. It seems that she is close to success the first time, but every time after that, she is closer to success than the last time, but she never reaches the point of success. Time. It seems that things that are clearly within reach are actually extremely far away. Why on earth? Edisha is so annoying. Edisha almost collapsed. She has long, silky hair, disheveled, which almost made her bald. Jia Yan was also thinking hard in the subspace. Don't think that he is really inferior to Edisha. Just in terms of calculation and memory, Jia Yan may be a little convinced, but in other aspects, Jia Yan prides himself on being no worse than anyone else. Through these few months of observation, he also had a general understanding of the other party's research direction. Correct. Jia Yan suddenly thought of something. Life is not so easy to change its essence. It is not easy to create life. But if you want to directly make the created life jump directly from the lowest level of life form out of thin air to a talented array talent, I'm afraid that this will naturally be blocked by the laws of the universe. It's not that the universe has any great emotions, but that life is the most complex thing in the universe. She wants to achieve it overnight and achieve two miracles in one breath, which is naturally superimposed. Difficulties. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3092. After Jia Yan understood this, he started thinking again, his eyes wandering back and forth between Edisha and the figure she created. It can be seen that in the process of creating the formation genetic life, Edisha is pursuing endless perfection. She was too demanding. The superposition of two miracles was 100 times more difficult than simply creating life, but as he thought more broadly, he discovered that such a process was not absolutely necessary. It doesn't even have to be both at the same time. It would be half as perfect, but that's an exaggeration. Failed again, so annoying. Edisha stood up angrily, covered in powder and dust, and jumped on her little feet. Edisha. Hey, master brother, Edisha was startled, and then quickly smiled. Then Aditha's whole body suddenly shook, and she was pulled into the subspace, along with many materials in the entire hotel room. The huge black giant mosquito has existed in the subspace for an unknown length of time. Its eyes are awe-inspiring, and it naturally reveals the aura of a terrifying existence like a mountain. You create life again, and I will help you. Huh? Okay. Edisha still wanted to pretend that nothing happened, but after hearing Jia Yan's blunt words, she suddenly realized that Jia Yan knew everything about what she had done. Then there's no need to give it a surprise, it's better for the two of them to study it together. Wait, you don't have to start directly, start from simply creating life. Jia Yan stopped Edisha from continuing to have two miracles happen at the same time. Good. Edisha's mind suddenly couldn't turn around, but she knew that Jia Yan would not harm her, and at most it would just fail again. Good guy, how familiar she is with the whole process. Jia Yan's compound eyes froze as he watched Aditha skipping the process of converting array genes and creating life as easily as eating and drinking. The little guy is a talent. Jia Yan, who wanted to help her succeed, unknowingly watched the entire manufacturing process of Aditha without any room for intervention. Buzz. As all the resources turned into a figure, the life form created by Aditha was completed. This is a small mosquito. The black and brown color is the same as Jia Yan who walked out of the earth. Perhaps this represents Edisha's true impression of Jia Yan. Of course, if she wants to be the Jia Yan she is now, she doesn't have that many resources. Okay, now let's optimize the array genes. Aditha was dumbfounded, the model she designed was not like this. If she were still Edisha in the era of smart brain, such a simple change of thinking might cause her to freeze and fall into incomprehensible tangles. But after all, she was already a quirky little girl, so after a moment of confusion, she also reacted come over. Yeah, it can really be like this, Edisha is so stupid. She became happily delighted, as if she had figured out what was going on. Seeing the little guy happily starting to perform the next task as if he had solved some big problem, Jia Yan's eyes flashed with joy. Even though Edisha suddenly realized it, her life form destined her to have a hard time bypassing similar problems. In other words, if she encounters such problems in the future that can be solved by changing her mind, should she be able to overcome this hurdle or not? Perhaps it would take hundreds or thousands of similar shocks to get her used to having spurts of inspiration instead of just a single thought. I don't need to take action anymore. Seeing Edisha transforming the little mosquito's life genes bit by bit with her ability to operate the formations in finer ways than Jia Yan, burying a large amount of perfect level formation power, Jia Yan was relieved, but also had some self-doubt. I am a high-ranking domain master, and I can't even interfere in a child's research. Isn't it a bit too low? However, seeing Aditha's flowing movements and not allowing others to interfere even a little bit in the process, he accepted his status as an admirer. Anyway, Aditha has a special life form and has no spirit of cooperation with others. No wonder he and Leda previously cooperated to study the formation gene. Aditha can only act as a memory clerk, and other constructive opinions are half valued. I can't point it out, it's not that they resist the weak, but that Edisha's ability is weak in the kind of work that requires creativity. Soon. The whole process of Edisha was like a machine, and all the operations were so precise that Jia Yan couldn't find any faults. Under the operation of her small hands like after images, a series of blue formations were formed in the space, and they were submerged in the little mosquito body, ultimately forming the genetic template in the mosquito body. Yeah. Ta. Okay. Edisha, awesome. Just after Edisha successfully converted all the formation genes, the little black mosquito suddenly burst out with a cute little lowly voice, laughing and shouting. You guy. Jia Yan couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. He thought that Edisha would create a life with independent personality. Unexpectedly, at the last moment, she gave a piece of her spiritual power to this life and created it into a clone of himself. Not a perfect level, but close to a perfect formation gene clone. You must know that this is a life that is accumulated out of thin air using resources for no reason, and it is created to be close to the perfect array genetic talent. If this is said, I am afraid no one will dare to believe it. There will be no inexplicable and heaven-defying existence in the universe. This formation of genetic life may have truly broken some miracles. Creating life is a miracle, and converting the created life directly into top talents is another miracle. Jia Yan, who was communicating with Edisha and looking at the little black mosquito, was about to say something when his expression suddenly changed. Wait. Don't move. Huh? What are you doing? Editha's unique and lovely voice came from little mosquito. She looked back at Jia Yan, but her eyes also changed in the blink of an eye. Let me observe. Jia Yan's eyes were strange, filled with surprise and joy. He looked at the small dark brown mosquito and murmured, miracles trigger enlightenment. This is the thing of enlightenment. An object of enlightenment. Listen, Edisha thought to herself, this is okay. I learned from the Southern Star that the best material for the existence of the lower level territory lords if they want to advance is the object of enlightenment. As for the object of enlightenment, Jia Yan has been in the Southern Superstar for so long, but he has not obtained even one. The Chuxing forces promised to give Jia Yan some enlightenment objects that they had, but it was just an agreement without a single stroke of the 8 characters, and there was no shadow. I thought that the chance for Jia Yan to realize this kind of treasure for the first time would be far away, but unexpectedly, the opportunity fell on Edisha. Brother Master, you look good. Edisha simply stopped her clone and concentrated her mental power on her true body. The little black-brown mosquito quietly stopped in the subspace, motionless. The giant mosquito looked completely dwarfed by the small mosquito less than 1 meter in size, but both of them seemed to have entered some strange state, and time seemed to have stopped. Edisha also opened her eyes wide, and looked hard at the black mosquito she had just created, but her big eyes were sore from looking at it, and she couldn't see any reflection. What? Edisha pouted and said to herself, Edisha, you are nothing. Do you also want to understand what the master brother feels? Edisha, you are nothing, tui. Ba ba. Editha sang a one-man show. Otherwise it would be too boring. Xiao Yuer is still in the yin-yang section now. She has no one to play with. She has been quite bored for the past year, so she has learned to chat with herself. Anyway, in the endless data memorized by the brain, there are too many conversations between various forces and civilizations. With the way of communication, she can curse people in tens of thousands of languages. However, under the bored energy of Edisha, Jia Yan, who fell into his first high-end perception, was shocked. Is this the so-called object of enlightenment? Jia Yan has never really seen an object of enlightenment. He has only seen a few things that are close to the object of enlightenment in the Southern Star. Occasionally, when he sees the rising sun, he can experience it once, but those things are not the same as the real enlightenment before him. The objects seem to be slightly different, but he could detect that the difference was so huge that it couldn't be calculated by logic. Jia Yan felt two miraculous things at the first sight, and the enlightenment triggered by them was genuine. When he realized it, the power that came from the origin of the universe made him think about it endlessly. Any words to describe this feeling were lacking. It was as if looking at this figure, he saw some profound truths. A large number of problems that could not be solved in mathematics, physics, and science. Not long after seeing this creation, Jia Yan understood it and felt that all of them were solved. It's amazing. Finally, after an unknown amount of time passed, Jia Yan came back to his senses from his confused state, and came back to his senses from his enlightened state. He received so much shocking knowledge and memories in his mind that he couldn't tell what time it was now and who he was. However, the hazy state lasted for less than a minute, and he was completely awake. Only about a week has passed, which is not a short period of time, but it is definitely not the kind of cultivation state where there is no sun and moon in the mountains, and 1,000 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Master brother. Aditya's childish little voice sounded beside him. Jia Yan saw the little girl leaving the dimension at some point. She was eating idly beside her with a lot of delicious food. When Jia Yan looked at her, her little mouth was still stuffed. It's full and looks like a pig. Well, you keep eating. Jia Yan was so calm that he looked at the little mosquito standing quietly in the subspace. He solemnly put his feet together and saluted the mosquito. Adisha didn't know why, so she stuffed all the remaining snacks into her mouth, jumped up quickly, and bowed to the little mosquito she had created. Her funny actions made people laugh. What are you doing? Jia Yan looked at her dumbfounded. Adisha should learn from my master's brother. I worship it because it triggers enlightenment, and after I pray, the power of enlightenment has disappeared. You are making a fool of yourself by worshipping something you made. Humph, Adisha likes it. Adisha knew that Tsundara was Tsundara, and her chin was raised high, but she quickly lost her ability, her big eyes twitching, and asked, Master, brother, have you gained a lot? This realization, what is it? Aditya could feel something, but she couldn't feel it, so it was very uncomfortable. Well, what about harvest? This kind of thing is difficult to explain. In short, it is some mysterious insights that cannot be explained. The reason is unclear. Jia Yan sorted out his words and said that he had some difficulty in explaining. What does it mean to be unclear? Jia Yan was startled and realized that this little Adisha had probably never entered the so-called enlightenment state. Even the practice is step by step, completely like a machine, so to explain to her what it means to not be able to explain clearly, it would be better to first explain what enlightenment is. But it was very troublesome, so Jia Yan wisely skipped this plan. He said, this kind of thing is difficult to explain. Just like you can use your hands and feet, right, but can you explain to others what it feels like when you use your hands and feet? You can't explain it, right? Yes, Adisha controls her hands and feet by releasing electric waves from the brain stem through the cranial nerves in her brain. It's very simple. I'm talking about feelings. Can you explain your feelings clearly? Adisha tilted her little head and said without giving up, Adisha can make a machine that allows others to experience the feeling of my body. What's the use of doing this? I mean, understanding this kind of thing is just like driving your own hands and feet. It's unclear. I only know that I understand a lot more about the truth. Let me, I said, I can't tell. Oh, Adisha knows. Adisha mused. Jia Yan couldn't help but tell her, your life form is special and your thinking mode is a bit rigid. With your current talents and abilities, I'm afraid there will be big problems in joining the Territory Lord in the future. After all, what the Territory Lord needs is more understanding. If you don't let yourself improve your power of perception, you may be trapped in the middle level of the galaxy in the future. And even if you enter the Domain Master, Senior Domain Master post level, and the post-domain master level where I am now, every time stage breakthroughs require endless insights and personal thinking. All of these will be your hurdles. If you want to get stuck at these thresholds, and give me the idea of abandoning your intellectual brain now. From now on use your brain more in the future, you know. What does it mean to use your brain? You, read more and learn more. You will understand one day. Oh, Adisha knows. Jia Yan was overjoyed to receive the object of enlightenment, but was made agag by Adisha, which greatly reduced the joy. However, this harvest cannot be described in terms of strength or breakthrough. I believe that beings of the same level, that is, people in the lower ranks of territory lords, will understand the first time they see him that he, Jia Yan, has taken a solid step in exploring the path. When fighting, it does not mean that he will definitely win, but he definitely has a lot of chances of winning. Even in a disadvantageous situation, the enemy may not dare to despise him. Just like his previous fight with Chu Xing, although he suppressed Chu Xing from the beginning to the end and beat him to the extreme, chasing him to the point where he was running around his house, Jia Yan did not dare to truly despise him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3093. Is this the Realm Lord's lower level that I've experienced? No wonder it's called Path Blazer. Jia Yan came to his senses. Recalling that the Supreme Being led him to the pulsar to understand the path, he couldn't help but sigh at the vastness and fraternity of his predecessors. Selfless. The so-called road is definitely not a cultivation method given by a senior, but a wall that practitioners will naturally hit. It is difficult for Jia Yan to imagine how the original domain lord would be without the help of seniors to open the road. Although he had not set foot on that level, he could imagine that those seniors at the time might have united with several people of the same level, or just one person, to create the heavenly road in order to keep me safe. The road to enlightenment has been cleared by the predecessors, and I am just one of the ordinary people rushing on the road. Today, I finally realized the first thing of enlightenment. Jia Yan smiled. In fact, in essence, the heavenly road is also an object of enlightenment, and among the objects of enlightenment, the level is by no means an ordinary existence. However, it was an entry-level object, and Jia Yan almost forgot that he had ever comprehended the heavenly road. Now, comparing it with the object of enlightenment that I personally witnessed, I immediately understood clearly how majestic and mysterious the heavenly path is. The method that can create a powerful heavenly path is really unfathomable. When Adisha walked up to her clone, Mosquito, she realized at a glance that the life she had created was missing something. Jia Yan said calmly, "A miracle happened, but it is not a miracle. I have also realized the power of perception. Adisha, this is because I owe you a favor. When you need something to use perception, I will also find something for you to comprehend and leave it to you to comprehend." Jia Yan's words were sincere, even though he knew very well that Adisha would never mind even if he didn't say anything, but he didn't want to be such a person. Okay, from now on if Adisha wants master, brother must look for her for Adisha. Adisha didn't say no, but the little girl knew Jia Yan well, and saying so would hurt her feelings. She doesn't want it now. Maybe by the time Adisha needs something to understand, Jia Yan will have already set foot on the domain lord who looks down on the common people. What he wants to understand by then will not be an ordinary sentence. But you are indeed a remarkable life form. I have one last thing to do in this area. After you finish it, follow me back to Yin Yang sect to pick up Xiao Yuer. With your perfect creation, the super life form will definitely increase the success rate of the array gene by several %, and I have to thank you for this. You're welcome. Adisha should do it. Adisha said you're welcome, but the corners of her mouth were raised high, and she was filled with happiness and pride. She has been working hard for the past 6 months just for now. Although in the end it was because of Jia Yan's suggestion that she created the imaginary life form, and it was a half-missed version. Judging from the current conditions and strength, it can only be done to this extent. Moreover, the life form she created actually triggered the miracle of sentient beings, which made Jia Yan faintly advance to a stronger level of domain lord. It can be said that it is all her credit. How proud is the little girl? It's no exaggeration. There. The huge and unparalleled palace emerged in the deep layers of the nearby subspace. Jia Yan borrowed Edish's clone, Mosquito, and placed it on top of the palace, silently paying attention to its structure and movements. Finally, Jia Yan sighed. The cultivation of strong people becomes a bit confusing as the practice reaches an advanced stage, just like scientific research. In fact, in the later stages, many puzzling questions will arise, as well as phenomena that cannot be explained by ordinary principles. This is true for quantum entanglement, various mathematical formulas, and many natural phenomena. And the objects of enlightenment seem to have a mysterious aura. Not only is the inner part of the object of enlightenment gone, but also this life structure. It will be extremely difficult to create a similar situation in the future. No matter how hard Edissa tries, she will not be able to reach the level of this clone. Such is the enlightenment that arises in him. It stands to reason that as long as Edissa's formulaic operation is successful once, she will be able to replicate it perfectly next time, and maybe even do it better. But this is not the case. First of all, what Edissa did was only superficial work, which caused 2 miracles. In the end, with the help of some kind of cosmic law, it became such a perfect appearance. Edissa was right, it was only half as perfect as the designed version. But this calculation and judgment is also a result calculated based on the laws of the universe and calculation formulas mastered by Edissa. But now, when Edissa goes to recalculate, her little brows can no longer frown, because no matter how she calculated, any similar life form she created in the future would not be able to reach the current level. Uniqueness. Jia Yan nodded. Edissa, you don't need to study this version of life creation in the future. In fact, your original design was very good, but your current strength is still too poor. In my estimation, you will be able to create it again when your strength reaches the galaxy level. Try it, it will be almost the time when you need to use the object of enlightenment, and then you can create a truly perfect clone. I am afraid it will be a double gain for you, so work hard. Yeah, Edissa, work hard. Editha waved her little fists to cheer herself up. Jia Yan was pleased to find that the little girl had grown up, not psychologically, but physically. He told her to let go and grow up, and she listened. I don't know what this little devil will look like when he grows up in a few years. Will she be a beautiful woman? In other words, his temperament will change drastically. Jia Yan shook his head, feeling that he was overthinking. With Editha's formulaic intellectual temperament, no matter how much she changed her appearance, she couldn't make much progress. Thinking that not long after, a girl in her teens or 20s would shout Edissa to him, Jia Yan almost laughed at his own association. I hope it won't be like that, otherwise it won't be eye-catching. The giant palace adjusted its direction on the west road of Chu Xing's forces and sped away slowly. On that border planet, the Star Masters had already learned the information about Edissa disappearing out of thin air from the subordinates who ordered to pay attention to the hotel. When he arrived, he looked around and suddenly understood that Edissa should be there. He was taken away by the great being behind him, and he was suddenly frightened and ecstatic at the same time. Naturally, he was surprised that the existence had come and he couldn't even see any trace of it. Naturally, he was ecstatic because as long as Edissa left, the matter had nothing to do with him, and he could continue to sit back and relax on this border in the future. His own earthly emperor. Within the Chuxing forces. Even after the attack by mysterious and powerful foreign men incident more than half a year ago, it did not affect its prosperity in the slightest. The news of Master Chuxing's defeat was also strictly limited to certain market rumors, and such rumors, like many equally nonsensical urban legends, were regarded as jokes by countless people, so they did not affect too much many people's livelihood. This, sir, you have been here with us for some time. How about we call Master Chuxing to come and contact you personally? Our status are really not worthy of receiving you. Needless to say, if you tell me, that guy from Chuxing will definitely blame me for trespassing on his territory without permission. Then, we won't be fulfilling our duties if we don't say anything. Haha, if you don't tell me about this, I won't tell you. God knows that you know it and I know it. Just keep it a secret. Why bother asking for trouble? Well, in a vacuum, several galaxy-level powerhouses looked at each other in the starry sky. Opposite them was a familiar powerhouse, the junior domain lord who had an agreement with Jia Yan. This person has been here for some time. At first, no outsiders noticed his existence, but he did not hide his figure. Soon, local consuls came to know about this strong man and wanted to ask him to report or expel him. But what the local governors of the Chuxing force did not expect was that this person was actually a lower-level domain lord, and his strength was not inferior to Lord Chuxing. After careful investigation of his identity, they also found out that the other party was related to the Chuxing force. The master of another major force in the neighborhood has always had friendly relations with Chuxing, and the two major star forces also have friendly relations. This is not easy to get rid of, and this person is quite mysterious. The strong people here should not report to their superiors. It is best to hide it even from Chuxing. Although they did not comply, but reported it to the higher UPS, they pretended that they had not reported it and were waiting for a reply from the higher UPS. However, the water from afar could not quench the thirst nearby, so they had to guard this strong man in this area 1 or 2, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Oh! You don't have to blow your hair and stare. My friend is here, and then I will be gone. You can finally be free. Suddenly, the eyes of this powerful person from the lower realm lord suddenly brightened up, and he looked towards a certain direction in the subspace. Ha ha ha, you are worthy of being of the same level as me in strength. In my palace, ordinary domain lords cannot detect it. Deep in the subspace, a refreshing male voice echoed along with the voice of the territory lord, which sounded like a breath of fresh air, as if the other party was the most friendly existence. Even several major galactic-class people raised their smiles slightly when they heard this voice for the first time, but suddenly, they all reacted, and some people were shaking like chaff, and those who were weak in concentration followed the opposite direction of the voice, and ran away quickly. They have all heard the audio or video of this voice from various channels. Just a few days ago, there was a huge commotion within their Chuxing forces, but the Chuxing forces had no way of doing anything about the powerful person at the lower level of the territory lord, Jia Yan. Although this powerful being and their Chuxing forces temporarily became friends with Qin and Jin, they knew very well that they were far from friendly and more likely to be enemies than friends. You don't have to worry about waiting. If Mr. Jia Yan wanted to attack you, you would have died long ago. The junior territory lord looked at the expressions of these galaxy-level people and suddenly burst into laughter. That's right, I've met Mr. Jia Yan. I have met Mr. Jia Yan, but I didn't know that he came from afar and was not welcomed from afar, so I still ask you to see him. It was only at this time that several galaxy-level people understood the truth. They couldn't help but stop one by one and saluted deep into the subspace. Puff. Along with their vigilance, a figure appeared in the subspace, broke through the surface of the subspace, and quickly swept out from the inside. This huge figure is almost similar in size to the territory lord rear class next to them, and the aura is even closer. Of course, It may also be because the galaxy level is too weak for the Territory Lord rear class. Anyway, they all look like ants looking at elephants, unable to tell the strength or weakness among them. Your Excellency Jia Yan, you are true to your word. If you say half a year, it really means half a year. It's a pity that I have been waiting here for half a year. The lower level existence of the Territory Lord, with a smile on his face but not a smile on his face, suddenly opened his mouth and burst into words. Sir Jiqiao, what you said makes me a little confused. We agreed at the beginning for half a year, and you didn't want to do other things during these 6 months. Why are you blaming me now? Jia Yan smiled and spoke tit for tat. The two of them smiled similarly, and it didn't look like they were friendly, but rather quarrelsome. Of course, neither of them took it seriously. Gudu. Several galaxy-level powerhouses had dull eyes and swallowed their saliva in disbelief. A few of them with rich imaginations even trembled as they came up with a certain guess. Could it be that this ingenious and powerful man who was friendly with their Chuxing forces actually formed a friendship with Jia Yan and was preparing to deal with their Chuxing forces? What should we do? Although one Jia Yan will not destroy the entire Chuxing force, if he adds someone of the same level and a clever force that is similar to the Chuxing force, wouldn't their Chuxing force be really good? Of danger. Find bookstore. They wanted to report this matter now, but it was impossible because the two powerful late-level domain lords were chatting and laughing not far away from them. Okay, Jiqiao, you deliberately leaked the news to this group of weaklings here. You must be deliberately preparing to attract someone to show up. We had an agreement on this matter at the beginning and said that he would not be allowed to join, but now why did you change your mind again? Jia Yan exchanged some pleasantries with the other party, and then suddenly looked at the uneasy Zing class people standing by. The guys' hearts were beating like drums, but the words he said made them touch the 2-foot-long monk. No idea. When Jiqiao heard this, he didn't become angry, nor was he surprised by being exposed. After all, this was just a plan, and what was put on the table was deliberately to let Jia Yan meet these people from the Chuxing forces. He looked at a certain direction in the starry sky and said calmly, actually, I was really prepared to share these gains with you and me at first. However, I spent a certain amount of time in the past few months to investigate your Excellency. The specific information, to be honest, your Excellency Jia Yan's information really surprised me. Your age and your talent are really shameful and full of mystery. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3094. Jia Yan straightened his expression and replied calmly, so what, is this the reason for your change of heart? That's not the case. Jiqiao shook his head and continued, actually, what makes me have the idea of wavering is that you have acted ruthlessly in these few years of life, especially after entering the central star field of our galaxy. A series of offending so many forces that seemed far more powerful than you at the beginning actually triggered a large number of chain reactions. I think you, who were so bold at the beginning, must be even bolder now. The words stopped abruptly. Jia Yan understood the meaning of his words. You are too bold, you make trouble, and you are definitely not a person of integrity, so I can't believe you. Jia Yan was startled and smiled bitterly. That's right, from the perspective of other strong men, Jia Yan is too young, full of the bohemian and unscrupulous nature that only young people can have. Moreover, although he is not a treacherous villain in terms of his superficial resume, he is definitely not a noble being who respects the spirit of contract. After Jiqiao investigated his information, he considered changing his mind and no longer believed Jia Yan. Haha, I told you, this guy is definitely not trustworthy. Brother Jiqiao almost made a big mistake. A voice that Jia Yan really didn't want to hear came from a distance. Jia Yan had no doubts about it and looked for the sound. He saw a being flying over there with an aura very similar to the two of them. He is the supreme leader of the Chuxing forces and the top combatant, the Chuxing. Friend Shuxing, are you suspected of slandering me by saying this? Who asked me to go on the date in the first place, and then broke out a war with me? Jia Yan sneered and smiled. The figure was not embarrassed at all. It flew beside the two of them. The three lower-level figures of the domain lords were constantly stirring in the starry sky. Several galaxy-level powerhouses in the distance just turned their attention here and felt their consciousness. The sound of morning bells and evening drums appeared in the sea, which made them dizzy and retreated involuntarily. The power of the lower level of Territory Lord is definitely not something that the galaxy level, which is not even lower than Territory Lord level, can glimpse. Just as the three domain lords gathered on the back steps and stood on their own feet, Chu Xing's expression changed and he looked at Jia Yan with a look of surprise and uncertainty. You actually have the power of enlightenment. During these days of separation, Jia Yan has a lot of opportunities as a friend. You flatter me. Jia Yan smiled calmly and nodded, but did not say anything that he was just a parent, running to see his children. After receiving a child, you can have insights. If you say it, these two people will be envious to death, so it is better not to attack others. Your Majesty, Jia Yan has made further progress, which is by no means a bad thing for the two of us. In this way, our confidence in entering the world there has increased. Ji Jiao stared at Jia Yan. He didn't see anything strange about Jia Yan before. It wasn't that he was weaker than Chu Xing, but that the two sides did not use the same skills. Chu Xing had been using the enlightenment objects within Chu Xing's force for many years to gain enlightenment. There is nothing wrong with being stronger than him in terms of perception. Isn't it definitely a bad thing? I think that Your Excellency Jia Yan's increased strength will bring no harm but no benefit to the two of us. After all, you have heard of this man's rules and tricks. Jia Yan snorted coldly. Friend Shuxing, if you can't trust me, you don't need to participate in my plan with Lord Jiqiao. In other words, if you two don't want to trust me, then I'll just turn around and leave. With that said, Jia Yan tore open the subspace and pretended to leave angrily. Hey, Your Excellency Jia Yan, that's not what we mean. Wait a minute. The two of them could not help but feel a little disappointed when they saw that their attempt to intimidate Jia Yan did not achieve the intended results. However, they could not really let Jia Yan leave because all their hopes were based on Jia Yan's talent in subspace. Your Excellency Jia Yan, you are also a lower-level territory lord. You should understand that the gap between us and other lower-level territory lords is by no means easy to compare. In other words, we almost all have one and we can't stand up to the other ability, so if you say more or less about your fear, we are not without any support. As the person in charge, Ji Jiao adopted the attitude of a peacemaker, and Gu Jingbuobo persuaded the two of them with a pleasant look. Your Excellency Jia Yan, you are right to worry about me being connected with Chu Xing, but you don't have to worry. With the talent of subspace, even if you cannot defeat two opponents of the same level, there will be no problem in escaping. I will not take the risk of your own power being destroyed by you and start a war with you easily. Moreover, the two of us went to that world because we sincerely wanted to improve our strength. No one can say whether we can go there. There is a harvest, that is to say, I am afraid there will be a second or even third time, and we will still need to rely on your subspace power, so you don't have to worry about us betraying you. That's right. In that case, we and the three of us will let things go in the past. But I, Jia Yan, have said in advance that if any accidents or dangers occur during this trip, don't expect me to help you and others. This is natural. Even between me and my friend Chu Xing, there is absolutely no reason to sacrifice one's life to save each other. The three people opened their hearts, and the negotiation went surprisingly smoothly. After more than 10 minutes of discussion, they all entered the subspace that Jia Yan tore open, escaped into it, and quickly disappeared. Only those few galaxy-level masters who had been left standing aside for a long time were left behind. they're all gone. Let's go. These three are really scary. Even if I stand tens of thousands of kilometers away from them, I'm shaking all over and unable to move. After all, this is the lower level of territory lord. It is a level that we can hardly aspire to in our lifetime. That's just you. I want to reach this level within my lifetime, okay, although we can only partially understand what the three adults said just now. You are not allowed to say any of these words. Leak it out, otherwise some big shots will cause trouble for you afterwards, so don't blame me for not reminding you. Naturally, we still understand this. After a moment of uneasiness, all the Zinc class members retreated from this place in tacit agreement. At this moment, the existences of the three lower-level domain lords, under the leadership of Jia Yan, had entered the depths of the subspace, and together they saw the huge palace on the 10th floor of the subspace. This palace is quite exciting. Your Excellency, Jia Yan is so elegant. Compared to the size of a planet, with such a level of refinement, it is worthy of the status of a lower-level domain lord. The two of them admired, but that was all. As a lower-level domain lord, the galaxy they control spans hundreds or thousands of kilometers. For them, a small planet-level palace is not worthy of their admiration. I have met two adults. Little Adisha had been looking respectfully at the palace gate. After waiting for a long time, she saw Jia Yan leading the two powerful men to the door. She immediately cheered up and saluted all three of them one by one. The three lower-ranking territory lords, including the laughing and joking Adisha, did not dare to do too much at this time. This maid is quite interesting. Is it a unique life form? It seems to be made but not made. Your Excellency, Jia Yan has a good trick. This time, the two of them were slightly moved. Under their gaze, the composition of Edisha's life was not a big secret. It was just that Edisha was just an ordinary creature maker. The problem was that she was a creature maker. At the same time, she also possesses a yin-yang Dao physique, coupled with the perfect modification of the formation Dao genes, which gives her a mysterious aura all over her body. Mere means, no respect. Jia Yan led the two of them into the hall, deliberately not letting them see more of Edissa. These two were not ordinary creatures. It could be seen that Edissa was related to the improvement in his perceived strength. Will it be possible in the future? Disadvantage to Edisha was also unpredictable. After simply letting Edisha salute, he left the palace and went to wait for his orders on the Edisha planet. After recognizing the person, Shuxing and Jiqiao remained silent and didn't seem to pay much attention to Edissa's affairs. Of course, it was unknown whether they thought so in their hearts. This tea was accidentally obtained by me from the Southern Superstar. The one who traded the tea to someone was also a being of the same level as me. How do you two think it tastes? After the two of them tried Jia Yan's tea, they felt slightly relieved. They knew that Jia Yan gave them good things, and they immediately understood and showed more kindness. They were very satisfied with Jia Yan's attitude. This is what a collaborator should mean, otherwise there will be tension and cooperation will be useless. Speaking of which, both your excellencies promised to give me a certain amount of compensation. Now that I have arrived, why not give the compensation to me now? The place here is large and can be accommodated. While Jia Yan was chatting, the conversation suddenly changed. The two strong men drinking tea could not spit out the fragrant tea from their mouths. They looked at each other and knew in their hearts that it was impossible for this outsider to partner with them without getting some benefits. Heading to the other world. A typical person who doesn't let go of hawks when he sees rabbits. Your Excellency Jia Yan, watch out. This time, I have specially recruited special subordinates from the Chuxing forces and sent many items from the ingenious forces. Do you think there are any you like? As he spoke, Jiji Domain Master Hoji took out some extremely solid objects from a metal vessel behind him. Each of them is hundreds of meters in size. Although it is nothing compared to a creature that is 50 or 60 kilometers in size, the shocking power they exude makes people slightly moved. This is the ingenious creation that my ingenuity power has made over the years, and it has become so powerful. Among them are ingenious thunders, ingenious mechanisms, and some are ingenious puppets. For the lower level domain lords like us, we only need to read the instructions to use them. Jia Yan took over these creations, and then he realized why the backstep of Jiji domain lord had been carrying the metal utensils behind him when they met just now. It turned out that this had been settled a long time ago. Very good, I'll take it. Jia Yan nodded with satisfaction, suppressed his unhappiness, and turned his gaze to Chu Xing. I also have a few items from the first star force that you want here, but they are not as good as those from the clever force. Please keep an eye on them. Chu Xing smiled enthusiastically on the outside, but inside he was yelling and screaming. The few objects he took out were not of much help to Jia Yan, but they might be of some help to the entire Yin and Yang Dao. Jia Yan didn't expect them to give him anything that would directly help him now, so he just accepted them one by one. So, is Your Excellency Jia Yan satisfied? Well, yes, Sir Ji Chiao can tell you, what is the method of entering the next world. When the three of them talked about business, their faces suddenly became serious. Jia Yan, in particular, listened very carefully, for fear of missing even a small detail. After listening to Ji Chiao's explanation, both Jia Yan and Chu Xing showed signs of enlightenment. Speaking of which, this method of entry is actually quite different from what Jia Yan thought. In recent years, the ingenuity forces have built many objects that can withstand the turbulence and distortion of subspace. Some of them are so strong that they can withstand the deepest levels of subspace. However, the conditions for use of this kind of object are extremely strict, and the creature that enters it will compress its body to the limit. The principle is based on the structure of several giant stars. Of course, it cannot achieve the effect of a giant star. It must be cooperated by a strong person. Only by working hard to reduce the size of the body and compressing the genes of the entire body can we finally achieve it. After achieving this, any lower-level domain lord will no longer have too much focus to operate that item. At this time, a strong subspace talent like Jia Yan is needed to take action. Push them, no matter how small the pushing force is, as long as you push them tirelessly, you will one day be able to drift into the other world. Well, is this the only way? It's a good way, but no one knows how far the other world is 10 degrees from the subspace. If we have to fly for a long time, the distortion of the subspace inside will become stronger and stronger. We will one day destroy ourselves. This matter is dangerous. After hearing this, Shuxing shook his head like a rattle. He thought that cleverness had some good solution, but he didn't expect such a radical solution. Chu Xing, listen, I am certainly sure of this matter, and I also have part of the information within the 10-dimensional subspace, and I also know how to avoid subspace crises. Of course, I can't tell you now. You wait, otherwise my greatest reliance will be leaked for no reason. Ji Tong's expression turned ugly for a moment, and he looked at Jia Yan again. As a subspace talent, Jia Yan was more authoritative. On this matter, he believed Jia Yan. Because no one would be willing to joke with their own lives. However, Jia Yan's expression made him feel a little strange. At this time, Jia Yan's compound eyes kept flashing with a strange look. It seems that he is reminiscing about something. He was recalling the past when he first entered the giant world, the other world. At the same time, verify the clever rhetoric. After thinking for a moment, he returned to reality with piercing eyes, and said calmly, Sir Jiqiao, I can agree to what you said, but the necessary safety guarantee is indispensable. Please also send that thing to me. Take it out and let my friends from Chuxing and I take a look at it before we can decide whether to take this risky move.